Ladies and gentlemen, up until now you've seen the creature perform the simple mechanics of motor activity, but for what you are about to see next, we must enter quietly into the realm of genius. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, Damen und Herren, from what was once an inarticulate mass of lifeless tissues, may I now present a cultured, sophisticated man about town. Hit it!
The Sketch-O-Matic Show.
Sketch-O-Matic. Sound like a mountain lion. Shout out and rest in peace to P22, Hollywood's most famous mountain lion. Oh, sad news, but I am back with a brand spanking new episode of the Sketch-O Show podcast.
Sketchy.
The holidays are upon us, the sleigh bells are jangling, and the Christmas music is a-bumping. And speaking of Christmas music, well, today's episode, my special guest hails from the very famous, iconic radio station that is all about the Christmas music during the holiday season, KOST 103.5's very own producer for L&K's morning show, joins me on this episode, and we have a lot of ground to cover in radio talk, family talk, of course, the family losses we've both experienced. And then she flips the podcast on me and starts interviewing me.
Wow.
My special guest today is also known as, quote unquote, the wedding planner for L&K's morning show. I mean, this woman does it all. She wears many hats, plays many roles within that morning show. And to have her on the podcast here with me today is very special. She's really been a dear friend to me. She's been a fan of the podcast since day one.
What?
I know. Go figure. No idea. But she's listened to every episode.
Wow.
And she's told me that verbatim, and I believe her. Because she's actually proven it with notes and facts and stuff I don't even remember.
Stupid.
And not to mention, my special guest today can cook some mean tamales. I mean, my taste buds were rejoicing. It was almost reminiscent of my mom's cooking. That's what it reminded me of. And as I stated at the top of the show about the P22 mountain lion that just recently was put down humanely, I never felt such sorrow and sadness for a wild mountain lion that I'm grateful I never ran into, but I was also very grateful that he was around, and I knew he was out there in the mountains somewhere. And when I'd go on hikes, I always had it in the back of my mind, am I going to run into P22 today? Thankfully, it never happened, but I was always such a fan of his survival tactics and how he was able to be alone in the Hollywood mountains here near Griffith Observatory and just, surviving. But rest in peace, P22. I hope they make a movie about you one day. In today's episode, we also talk about a very dear friend to us in the radio imaging world, whose name was Forrest Martin, who recently passed away. And we give a little bit of an obituary about him and the great person he was. But more or less, we're just talking about life and radio and how to get into radio and how my special guest went from working regular jobs to ultimately working her way into KOST 103.5 and climbing up the ladder to be given the position of producer of the L&K morning show. There's so much more details I can give you, but I don't want to just spoil it. So without further ado, episode
18.
Let's Olympic style high dive in. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Sketch-O Matic.
Special guest from iHeartRadio's KOST 103.5. Producer of the L&K morning show, Darlene Rodrigo.
That's right. You heard the cat lady, the text-to-speech lady. She introduced my guest today, my very special guest today, our first sit-down podcast interview. And, I got to say, this woman plays many roles. The producer for L&K's morning show at KOST 103.5 here in Los Angeles, but otherwise known as the wedding planner for L&K, Darlene Rodrigo. Social Queen Darlene!
Thank
Thank you, Sketch.
What's up, Darlene? Oh, you're so sweet. I love how you had everything prepared when I came in today to record with you. You brought me some water.
That's my job.
I mean, you're just really on top of it. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, it's coming off of a rough weekend, but otherwise, got to be thankful for the blessings we have. And thank you. I know we've been trying to get together for a while now, and I've listened to every single episode of your podcast.
Should I apologize for that? Or?
No. Here's the thing. I love sound, and that's why I work in this industry, and I've stuck around this long. But I have a couple of notes for you because since I'm like a P1.
Yeah, you are a P1. Can you describe what that is for?
A P1 is like the prime listener, the ultimate A+ VIP listener that never misses a show.
Yeah.
So we love our P1s.
It's like appointment listening.
Yes.
Right? And I really appreciate you taking the time to listen because we didn't really know each other. We only knew each other from emailing and production because I work in commercial production at iHeart. And I'd have to email you because you're Ellen K's producer to get her commercials.
Yes.
Right? That's how the chain of command works. And you were always so responsive, always replied. But when I started my podcast, that's when I think we really connected.
Yeah, and then all of your drama with Instagram happened, and you got a new account, and I was like, dang, what's going on with this guy?
Oh, it's terrible. You know, Kristen Lamone from Alt 98.7 said it best. She's all, I think Instagram doesn't like you, Sketch. But I was telling Big Boy, let's just jump into that Instagram debacle real quick, and then we'll move forward with your notes, which I'm very curious to talk about. But as far as the Instagram thing, I'm just going to put it this way. If you want to use an app to analyze your followers on Instagram, don't do it.
Yes.
I did that. I made the mistake. And the app that I purchased off the App Store would look legit. Now, I'm going to also take fault, though. It's all my fault. I thought somebody was trolling me, right? And I was like, man, I know Instagram isn't that quick to respond to somebody if somebody's saying, report your account.
Yes.
It takes them forever to get to it, right? It's not going to just happen like that. My previous account, the @Sketchomatic account, was pretty PG. It wasn't anything risque or promiscuous. It's just radio nerd stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I decided to download this app. I'm not even going to say the name of the app because I don't want anybody else to make the same mistake. But I downloaded it and it worked for about 3 days and it worked really good. It was only $10.
So what does it tell you?
It differentiates the bot accounts from real accounts. Oh. And it could also tell you who'd unfollowed you, who may have blocked you. I wasn't really worried about that stuff because I had over 2,700 followers, which took me 10 years to gain, right?
Because that's organic followers for the most part.
Exactly. All
people.
What's it called? Unique IP addresses, as the tech world would refer to it. And, well, once the 72 hours passed, I went to go check the app that analyzed the followers, and sure enough, it just said, "Oh, you having trouble logging into your Instagram?" And I was like, "Oh, what's happening?" So I restarted the app again, same thing, and then I went to Instagram. It opened for a split second, and then that drop down came. It's all, "You've been suspended. Go fuck yourself."
Dang.
Go fuck yourself.
That sucks.
By the way, we can curse on this podcast, Darlene.
Yes.
Do you curse at all?
Yes.
You don't seem like a cursor to me.
Oh my gosh.
You do?
I curse.
Yeah, I know are you Latina? You're Latina, right?
I am, yeah.
What, are you Mexican?
I'm half Mexican, half Ecuadorian.
Ah, very nice.
My dad was born in Ecuador.
Oh, nice. I was born in Mexico City.
Yes.
Do you speak Spanish?
I do.
God damn it.
And speaking of Mexico City, just
go ahead.
Sidebar, because we're going to sidebar a lot. I'm
all about digressing.
My great-great-grandfather's skull is in a museum in Mexico City.
Wow. I wonder if our ancestors or our family knew each other to some degree.
I'm sure. Yeah. All I know is that he was like the Robin Hood of that day back then. And
not the app.
No.
The actual Robin Hood, right?
Poor people.
Yes.
He would steal from the rich to give to the poor. Yeah. And he was a thing. And they have a movie about him. And, there's one famous picture in the family, and I don't know who has it, but I'm hoping that it gets passed on to me.
Wait, the movie about
my great-great-grandfather.
Really?
Yeah.
And, I mean, you said Robin Hood, but it's not the Robin Hood movie. What movie are you talking about?
I don't know the exact name of the title, but it's about El Tigre del Santa Julia. Oh. And that's who my great-great-grandfather is. And so there's a cool picture. If you Google that, you'll see it. And his skull is in the museum. Wow. In Mexico City. So it is my goal to go see my great-grandfather.
I was going to ask you, have you been to Mexico City?
I've never, I don't own a passport.
Oh, you know what, though? It's kind of hard to do that nowadays, though. Post-Trump.
Yeah.
It's rough.
And to be honest, my dad, because he's a permanent resident, he's not like a full citizen. He's so nervous to get his stuff in order, even though he's like legitimate.
Yeah.
He's worked here his whole life.
Yeah, it almost doesn't matter anymore. You got to be careful.
We can't even go on cruises or anything because he's afraid, and it's sad that he shouldn't be afraid.
I have dual citizenship, meaning I was born in Mexico City, but my mom was from San Fernando here in California.
Why were you born out there?
Because my mom left to Mexico City to pursue her singing career.
Oh,
right? And
cool.
she didn't know how to speak Spanish either.
Oh, my gosh.
And when she moved to Mexico City and lived there for, I'd say, about 4 or 5 years, in that time, she learned to speak, write, and read in Spanish and sing. And she became she was kind of the shit out there. She was kind of famous.
Dang.
She was with a band called Castros. His name was Arturo Castro. I don't know if he's still around. Cool. He may or may not be, but he's definitely up in years. But at the time, this was like 1974.
Nice.
And my mom went down there, and I hate saying down there. Geographically, she went over there. Okay. Learned that from Robin Quivers on Howard Stern Show. Thank you, Robin. Nobody's listening. And then she meets my father, who's the recording engineer on the album.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And then bam.
5 years later. What's funny, as a quick sidebar, I don't think I've ever told this on the podcast. This is a quick little, I guess this is a Sketch-O-Matic Show podcast exclusive from Sketch-O-Matic.
Yeah.
And then we'll move forward with you, Darlene. I don't want to make it about me, but this is interesting. I think you'll find this very romantic and slightly, I don't know what else to say, cock-blocking. My dad, there was a few gentlemen that worked in the engineering with my dad in that time, right, in Mexico City. And my dad, Victor Nava, everybody had a crush on my mom, right? She's gorgeous, right? And then this one guy, I don't know who he was, he bought her flowers, but he was too afraid to give them to her. So he asked my dad, hey, Victor, will you give these to Diana and tell her they're from me? And he goes, okay, yeah, sure. And he goes, and here you go, Diana, this is from, and she goes, oh my God, these are from you? And he's like, yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And he stole
it. Woo-shee.
That is scandalous.
What a move. I know. What a move, right? Can't say I wouldn't have done the same. I wouldn't have not done the same thing.
Imagine this drop dead gorgeous lady looking you in the eyes. Of course he's going to say yes.
Yeah. I mean, I have a very, very strong crush on Brianna Ruffalo from ABC7.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I can't.
Are you a news junkie?
Well, let's see. I'm a news junkie to the point where I'll listen to the stories, and then once they start repeating, I don't need to pay attention anymore. But I like having it on in the background while I'm editing.
Okay.
Just as atmosphere. But when I hear her come on and see her come on,
you're like,
I turn around and I think to myself, man, I wish I could pull my father's move. Like, and say like, oh, she'll go, these flowers. Yes, Brianna.
Oh, man.
You know,
so do you have any recordings of your mom singing?
I do actually. She sang Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly in acoustic in Spanish. And she was the first woman in the world to do that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Please play a clip.
I will. I will have to pull it from the actual vinyl.
Oí que cantaba una canción de amor conforme a mi vida la misma situación.
I actually never played a clip of her yet. I played it on my previous Instagram. Oh, real quick to go back to the Instagram thing. As the stream of consciousness is all over the place. Yeah, the podcast is like it's like an inception. It's like layers deep, you know. But like EJ said when he was on the podcast, it's all about the stream of consciousness. You know, we're just here having a conversation, and obviously I'm going to edit it up a little bit and implement sound effects and all the cool stuff.
That's what I love about your podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I try to make it a little bit more ear candy for all 10
You're
people
like
listening.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sketchy the Hedgehog.
MacGyver of sound.
MacGruber. Remember MacGruber?
MacGruber. Yeah.
That's a freaking genius. MacGruber! But as far as the Instagram thing, I got suspended because of this app. So, word to the wise. if you're going to if you want to analyze followers and stuff like that, I say what I've learned is switch your Instagram to a professional account because that offers you a lot of insight tools that are very useful. Now, with the other app, it actually told you who blocked you, who unfollowed you specifically, which means it was gaining access of their information. And I learned that it was like a backdoor type of programming hack. That's why I got, because the algorithm from IG didn't like that analyzing shit.
Okay.
So they were like, nope, shut it down. And then I started another one literally the next day, and 48 hours later, that got shut down too from the same email address. And they go, well, don't you have the 2 security pin authentication? Guess what? The app that I installed copied my phone number. So now when I would try to get the pin number, it wouldn't send it.
So you were just screwed.
Now, I'm just screwed. And my IG is just floating around in the IG ether out there. It's
not the new one.
The new one is now connected to a different email.
Good.
And I started it with my real name at one point, Christian Ray, which I let it be like that for like a good month or so, just because I was afraid. I even changed my logo, my default pic, because I was like, what if the algorithm recognizes the icon or the default pic? So I was like, let's take that down, made it something that now I went completely back.
What a mess.
Yeah, but it's now @sketch_omatic.
Okay.
So that's just a little
good
easier.
luck.
I know.
I hope you can keep this
I
one.
hope so. Let me check it real quick because I feel like now.
And by the way, your name has both of my sons' name in it. So
Christ Ian? No.
My first son is Alexander Christian. That's his middle name.
That's a beautiful name.
And then my newest son, who's the baby, his name is Ray.
Ray, R-E-Y?
R-E-Y.
Like king
like
in Spanish.
King,
yeah.
El Rey.
Ray. Yeah. That's nice. And how many kids do you have, Darlene?
I have 3.
You have 3 kids?
3 kids.
And I mean, you seem very young. Did you have your kids young?
I started at 21.
Really?
Yeah. My firstborn was at 21. It was a hectic month because I turned 21 and I didn't drink yet.
I'm still on.
Oh, good. You're alive.
I'm still on. Yeah. Okay. And you turned 21. When's your birthday, by the way?
February 2nd.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
2,
right.
2. That's why 2 is my number.
You're a 222 gal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And what about your sons? Do they revolve around the 2s?
So they all of my kids have a 2 in their birthday.
Isn't that wild?
Somehow. Yeah. So does my husband. But yeah, so 21.
21. Sorry.
Got knocked up with my. Was I married? I'm like thinking about it. I was not married yet.
It doesn't matter.
But I was with my husband.
Of course.
We are actually, I don't know if you would consider it high school sweethearts, but we were friends like all throughout high school. And then he knew my boyfriends, I knew his girlfriends, and it was all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But at the end of our senior year, we got together. And we got to go to prom together, so that was cool. And like it just never stopped.
What high school did you go to?
We went to Diamond Ranch High School in Pomona.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're such an LA Cali girl.
Yeah, I grew up out here. I was born in Whittier. And then
where the girls are prettier.
Then my family moved out to Pomona when I was about 5. And so from 5 to 18, say what you will about the city of P-Town, but it raised me and I have a lot of love for the city. It still needs a lot of work and it still needs a lot of love, but it's a gang. It's known for its gangs and it's known for crime. And I wish it wasn't because there's just so much, there's so many beautiful people from that city that need to, like, we should be known for that instead of the bad stuff.
Well, you know what? LA is known for that in general.
That's true.
You know, there's different parts of LA for sure that are, but nowadays with all the smash and grab robberies that aren't even gang related, even gangs wouldn't do that.
You don't even need a reason. They're not afraid of anything.
Cholos and Crips and Bloods, they wouldn't even do that. They wouldn't even do that. Yeah. These smash and grab, that's adolescent child, because here's the thing, I'm gonna go ahead and be honest. When I was younger, I would steal car ornaments off the front of the car. When I was like in 7th and 8th grade, I used to run around. That was my smash and grab. And I would do it to I remember specifically doing it to a neighbor that I didn't like.
And why though?
Just because I could.
Okay.
And because I was a douchebag. And you know, like they say, like kids can be assholes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not talking about little kids. I'm talking about like young preteens when I was like 12, 13 years old.
It's that time of your life when you make rebelling. A choice.
Yeah.
Am I going to be good or am I going to be bad?
Right. Well, I was bad undercover and I was good, you know, in front of my mom. I put on a performance, but she saw through that shit. But I would do that. And then I look back and I see the news clips of these people stealing, going back to the Pomona thing and, you know, the gangs and whatnot. But it is the time that you grew up out there, right? It was a rough time. When I grew up in the 90s in Culver City, in West LA. It was scary.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't really go anywhere without being at least hit up by another gangster going, where you from?
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, it was very Hollywood was terrifying back then. Now it's all gentrified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a club on every corner.
Yeah, it's all fancy.
Yeah, everybody, there's still homeless people, but they're
barely smells like urine now.
Yeah, I do miss the urine-esque stairwell stench. Oh my God.
Oh man, yeah. I remember I was getting ready for prom when I went with Alex to my senior prom. I was doing my eyeliner and I was at the mirror in my room, just like focused, right? My eyelid was down. I was like trying to get it right in, and I heard the loudest gunshot. And it was so loud that like it made me stab my eye.
With the eyeliner?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So all night I had one red eye because I freaking popped my eye with the eyeliner, and my neighbor was killed from a drive-by shooting.
But it wasn't intended for him.
No, it was.
It was.
He was visiting his grandma, and he was a football star, so he got away from the hood to go play football and was in town visiting for the holiday and for Memorial Day because it was around that time. And they heard about him coming back, and at that time it was the blacks versus the browns.
Oh, yeah.
And they came and got him. And like I came back, there was all this commotion, and it's so sad now that I think about it because I was able to grow out of that environment, but back then it was just so normal, right? Like you hear of gunshots, okay, duck and crowd, keep going on with your day, right?
Yeah.
And I can't imagine having to teach my kids that now that I'm a mom. And I mean, we hear gunshots when the Lakers are playing or Dodgers or whatever,
or 4th of July,
but it's not like intentional gunshots,
right? It's joyful gunshots, which is weird because it's just as dangerous. A bullet going up in the air and falling down. I'm afraid of that. Like I'm afraid of bullets, like just any kind of bullet ricochet. Anything. I don't own a gun.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah,
I don't own a gun, and it's so funny. People always ask, like, why wouldn't you? And I've never. I mean, number one, I don't want to call people that own guns cowards.
Right.
But if I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna fight.
Right.
I'm not gonna turn to my gun and kill you instantly. Like, and that's just not. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable owning a gun.
I would be afraid to like try to shoot to kill someone.
Yeah.
I feel like if I did own a gun, I would probably just shoot for the knee or something. You know what I mean? Because I think that hurts even more.
Here's the thing. I do want to practice because I do feel like it's definitely a good skill to have.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what? So is archery. I would be a crossbow Walking Dead type of dude. Like, what's his name? Daryl Dixon.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
From The Walking Dead.
You don't even hear me coming. You just all of a sudden you're like creeping around with the gun in the house if you're trying to rob me, and all of a sudden you just hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's it.
And I remember my dad showing me how to shoot with the BB gun. I mean, I'm sure it's a little similar to that, but I still do want to eventually get my gun permit and learn because I should know. And it's just sad. Like, that's the world that we're kind of in right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know how we got into this.
No,
talk,
it's okay. We're talking about the Pomona and the area you're going to prom. And this happened on the night of your prom.
Yes.
And your next door neighbor gets
killed,
murdered.
Yes.
By a drive-by?
The drive-by shooting.
Wow. And they didn't hit the grandmother?
No, he was the only one in the front yard.
Oh, man, they must have. Oh, he was in the front.
Yeah,
I see.
He was in the front yard.
I was like, man, that's some hella good aim.
No, like he was standing because everybody hung out in the front yard.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
That was what
it's
we
like
did.
Boys in the Hood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I came back, and then I found out he died at prom, and that was intense. And then I don't know. Ever since then, I kind of always. I mean, I grew up with the guard on my back, but it was sad to know somebody that was killed.
I knew somebody in high school, this guy named David. He was in my chemistry class with me. He was a gangster, and I don't remember what gang he was from. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that he was super gangster, super cholo, but really nice, right? Really nice. He didn't really talk much. He was one of those silent cholos.
Okay, gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
What's up, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. David knew what to do. He was good at work, and eventually he got shot later, like in the year. And I remember I came to school one day and he wasn't there.
Dang.
And I talked to one of the security guards, Santiago. I remember I said, man, what happened to David? Where is he at? And he's like, you didn't hear? He got killed. And it was, no social media was around.
Yeah.
There was no news report of it.
Thing.
Yeah.
No
it's just like I just
media.
heard of it like a week later. And I'm like, man.
Yeah. Or you see it in the paper.
And he had a kid.
Oh, my God.
He was only like 17, 18 or something like that.
See, so now that you paint a little picture, like that's kind of how it was in that neighborhood. People having kids really young. So my mental state, I guess 21 was kind of older for having a kid, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, well, I guess
you know what I mean.
It's true, especially you grew up in the 90s, right?
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, and you're Latina.
Yes.
It's almost part of our culture.
Being 15 and pregnant is you have one of them in your family.
I knew a girl that was 15 and pregnant in 9th grade. 14.
Yeah, I remember middle school. It was the first time I heard about one of my classmates being pregnant, and I was like, dang, she's going to have a baby. My mom had just had a baby when I was 13. So I was thinking that's crazy, but I guess it happens, right?
How did your parents react to you getting pregnant at 21 and not married?
Well, they loved Alex and they knew that we had been friends for years. So they were really excited. But it's so funny. My mental state, I was just not excited to share the news with them because I was a little girl in my mind.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to get in trouble.
But what about your pops? Was pops like,
No, I was so scared to tell him. I remember the moment and the day and the time, and we were in their backyard and I was already moved out and I was doing really well actually for a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
My husband was just becoming a firefighter.
Oh,
he
wow.
had done like the academy, and
so your husband's a hero.
Yeah, like he was doing all of that stuff. He finished an academy really young. He was very successful and accomplished right out of high school.
Damn.
And
did he ever want to serve in the military?
No, he didn't do military or never wanted to, but he always wanted to be a firefighter.
That's dope.
And so he went straight into. He's really smart. So like the courses were not hard for him, but the mechanical stuff was hard for him. So like being mechanically inclined with tools and ropes and knots and all of that stuff. But he went to Rio Hondo, and then because I was just whipped on him, I was like, I'm going to follow you and go to college there too.
Oh, and then and you mean follow you like physically, literally, not
I want to drive with you to school and go to school with you.
Wow, that's so romantic.
And so
my God.
We lived together. We went to school together. We were working part-time at Best Buy together.
Wow.
Like all of this stuff. And like we were inseparable.
And you still are.
And we still are, yeah.
Let me ask you something.
Yes,
You've never been with anybody else.
No, I have.
I mean, before him, obviously.
Yes.
But I mean, you've only been with him before marrying him. You had kids together.
Yes.
And you've only been with him since.
Yes.
That's the right way to say it. Since.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, how do you do it? How do people? I commend people that are able to find that other person and have that
fast. Funny thing, he's my number 2.
What do you mean? Go ahead.
He was my second person, like my second real
love.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were in love before that?
I mean, I thought I was in love. It was like a real young puppy love kind of thing. But I was with the guy for over a year, and I was like, and and that was when I started questioning it. It was like, all right, this needs to move on. And then it's funny, I didn't want a serious relationship. I wanted to explore. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be on my own.
Right.
I didn't want kids.
Right.
Because everything around me had all of that, and I was like, I want something different.
Right. I mean, you did gain something different. I mean, you're here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But what's so funny is that he was always the only exception. Like if I had the chance to be with him, or vice versa, like I would change all of my plans just to be with him.
Oh my God.
So
that's real love.
That's when I was like, okay, well, it happened so organically. It felt natural. We were always friends. I think that's what really.
Well, you have chemistry.
Yes.
That's a chemistry that people do, like. People just want to get together because they don't want to be alone, but they don't have chemistry with that person. And my mom always said, Christian, you don't truly know somebody. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
Being friends with somebody like you and Alex, right?
Yes.
That's fine because you're young and you both still live at home with your mom and dad. But I mean, once you move out and you move in together, you don't truly know that person until you live with them for 2 years.
Totally.
And until you fought with them, not physically, just until you have a good, powwow.
Yes.
Then you know what each other's made of and know what boundaries not to cross. And also know what buttons to push.
Yep.
And get underneath that person's skin, vice versa. That's when you truly know somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, even Neo in The Matrix said it best. It wasn't Neo. It was Seraph. It was this in part 2 in Reloaded. He was like, "Why did you want to fight me?" And then that's Keanu. Or Neo's like, "Why did you want to fight?" And then the guy's like, "You don't truly know someone until you fight them."
You do not truly know someone until you fight them.
And then Keanu's all, "You could have just asked."
Could have just asked.
No, it's true because the first year was such a high level romance, nonstop honeymoon stage. We were engaged within the first year.
What?
Yeah, like he had proposed to me on our 1 year anniversary.
Where did he propose to you? Oh my God, at Disneyland. This is before
kids.
This is before California Adventure when it was just a parking lot.
We were in front of the castle. I think California Adventure maybe was brand new. Maybe. I kind of barely remember that. No. But anyway, yeah, so we then you start really, and mind you, we're growing up together.
Yeah. Are you the same age?
Yes, we're like 3 months apart.
When's his birthday?
November 25th.
Oh, yeah. Right after Thanksgiving, huh?
He's a Thanksgiving turkey baby.
Oh.
And so, so then my birthday's February, and he's just 3 months older than me. But I think none of it mattered because he cracked me up, number one, and then we both supported each other. Like whatever it was, as crazy as whatever we wanted to do was, we were like, do it. Just go do it. Go. I'm here to help you figure it out. And so, life took a turn for us because we were going hard.
Whoa.
We were just like, and we weren't like the party animal type. It's funny. We didn't get to be that type until after we became parents. I think like the stress of becoming a parent,
a new parent.
And also like because our firstborn ended up having special needs.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that because I didn't know that about you.
Yes.
And I know that's could be a sensitive subject to some people, but I know that you're open about it.
Yes.
Because I saw it on your Instagram. I always support it.
Yes.
But I didn't know that.
Yes.
I remember hearing about your two sons, about the 222 thing. We went back and forth about that. But then I saw.
So were you kind of shocked when you saw that?
No, not at all. I mean, I know other people that have kids that have special needs as well, and there's nothing. It's like shit just got real.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's not like an empathy, like sympathy, like oh my God, poor baby. It's just like damn, that's a courageous, brave parenting uphill endurance. And I don't know anything about having kids. I don't have anything alive in my apartment, Miss Darlene. Okay,
not even a fish.
I don't even have a plant. I used to have a bonsai
you don't have
tree.
A plant?
I had a bonsai tree when I lived in Toluca Lake.
Okay,
and it died.
What about a succulent? Those are the easiest.
Yeah,
things
apparently. No, you know what? There's succulents outside of my apartment that the manager. The building, because I live in a very small duplex setting, and it's right here in Burbank, right next to Warner Brothers Studios,
cool.
and there's just all these succulent cacti and all that stuff, and it's just it's like they're all there, and I just go, okay, they're there, but if I put it inside my apartment, it's gonna die. Even spiders die in my apartment. I don't know how anything's.
That's pretty bad.
I know. Spiders are just always on point. They're always ready to fight. They even look ready.
Yeah.
You never see a spider just laid out.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I can say about that is we weren't expecting. We were riding a high horse.
What's your daughter's name?
Bella.
Bella
is our 15-year-old. I can't even believe when I say that she's 15.
Wait, she's 15 now?
She's 15.
I thought she was like a little kid.
No, she looks little.
She looks like a little kid.
So Bella was born with Down syndrome.
Right.
And people with Down syndrome are typically smaller. They have characteristics that are very similar because, and this is where I do my little spiel on Down syndrome.
Please.
So somebody with Down syndrome is born with a different set of chromosomes.
Right.
So we all have a pair in our 23 pairs of chromosomes,
XYs,
right?
Or is that just for sex?
No, well, that does determine the sex.
Right.
But we have pairs, and I'll share a visual, so it makes a lot of sense when you see the picture. So just imagine there's 23 pairs, okay, meaning 2 in 23, so there's 46.
Right.
I was like, I'm bad at math. Anyway, in the 21st pair of chromosomes, a triple chromosome gets added during the process. They don't know why. There's no reasoning behind it, but it does happen 1 out of 700 births. And so because of that extra chromosome, it changes how the person develops.
Right.
And so somebody with Down syndrome, that's why if you notice people with Down syndrome kind of look similar.
Right.
They have the slanted eyes, the thicker neck, the thick tongue. They may not have a nasal bridge.
Right.
There's a cool fact about them, but my daughter has a simian crease, which means if you look at your palm, you have 2 lines. Typically, there's one straight across.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's what they look for when babies are born, and it was one of the things they noticed about her when shortly after she was born.
Well, she didn't have one, or have
she
those?
had one, and she also had other characteristics. I guess she looked more like an Asian baby, the doctor said, than a baby that was born to 2 Hispanic parents. And so these signs triggered an a response from the doctor to have her tested.
What year was this?
And this was in 2007. And Thanksgiving week, because she was born 5 days before my husband.
Wow.
The 20th of November. And so my husband got the news before I did because I was going through an emergency C-section and everything was going haywire. She was choking. And so they had to get her out right away, right? So the instant moment that I went into labor, less than 4 hours later, she was here. Mayhem, chaos, hospital machines beeping, all of that stuff. Like, we didn't even think she would make it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then on top of that, they observed, because she was choking, they observed that she had these characteristics of having Down syndrome. And it was Thanksgiving week, so they couldn't give us an answer right away because of it being a holiday week. So it took double the amount of time that it would take to confirm that. And what they do is they draw a blood sample and they check your chromosomes, and it shows up. And so we got the confirmation. She was still in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, and she was getting her oxygen levels back. And I was just like, okay, I'm a new mom. I don't even know how to take care of a baby. I had an idea because I helped my mom with my little brother when I was 13, but I was very maternal. I just was afraid on having these extra things to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole different planet of uncharted territory.
Totally. Meanwhile, my husband always had a good grasp, or at least I believed he did. He made me feel like he did. And this is where I'm like, man, we were just meant to be, because Alex grew up with a little sister who had cerebral palsy. And not saying that they're similar in any way, but
special needs.
He had a special needs family member, and I never did. And so actually, Roslyn was one of the few people I knew with special needs as being his little sister. But his entire family was like, it was, if it was going to happen, thank God it happened within their family, because they had so much to teach me and to help me with. Right. And so that just
kind of sets you up for the path you needed to take.
Totally. And I was able to kind of cut through a lot of the red tape that new parents of special needs kids have to go through. You don't know who to ask or how to ask or what to ask. And my mother-in-law was just so great about, like, ask the doctor this, ask the doctor that. And so was my mom, because I would forget about asking the normal questions sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
That's easy to do, though.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other things you're worried about. You're juggling so many thoughts and obligations and things you want to attend to.
Right.
Not just that, but just as a kid, being a mom, just spending time with her.
And then Bella had a lot of problems the first year of her life. We called her the $1 million baby because within a year, her hospital bills racked up $1 million. Yeah.
Oh my.
And we were in and out of the hospital she had RSV, which is that virus that's going around right now. It's like a respiratory virus.
There's a triple threat going around right now.
And then she also had seizures that came up when she was 6 months old, which we didn't know why. And it just it didn't stop.
It's a plethora of just avalanche.
Yes, an avalanche. And so
how do you deal with that, Darlene? If I may ask that, how did you get through that? I mean, did you find yourself crying? Did you find yourself feeling helpless?
I cried a lot when, like, she had to get treatments, and I seen her having to suffer and things that I couldn't help her with. Like, that stuff made me cry. I would cry, like, holding her down, trying to get an IV. I'm getting, like, choked up.
That's okay.
I would cry, like, having to see her go through an MRI machine, because I never had to do any of that.
Right, me neither. I know. And you feel so, it's like you can't do anything. You have to stand by and watch it happen.
And then so, the thing is that when you care so deeply, like, you just deal with it. No matter what it is, you just deal with it. And one of the things that bothers me the most, and I hear it all the time, and I know people don't mean wrong from it, but what they'd say is like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know. I would never be able to do it. And it's like, well, when you're there, you're going to do it.
When you're in the trenches, you're going to get through the war.
You're going to. You have to.
There's no other choice. This has to work.
Yes.
There's no option for failure.
No.
Period.
No.
And it's not even about you anymore. And that's the other thing. And that's the thing and I commend you for tolerating their ignorance. Yeah. Because I've almost had a lot of different kids with a lot of different women. Okay. Probably have to cut this
How
part
many?
out. Okay, well, like 6. Okay.
Okay.
Throughout my years.
Okay.
And all of them had abortions.
Oh, wow.
Okay, not by my, like, oh, you got to have an abortion.
Gotcha.
I was willing to thug it out.
Okay.
Did I want to have a kid? Not really.
Yeah.
You know, I was having too much fun.
Yeah.
But then I knew, like my mom said, like she was just like, you know, once you have a kid, once she's pregnant, you're out the window. Like it doesn't matter anything
It's not about you anymore.
You're just there to provide.
Yes.
And to be that guy, to be a man. And I'm sure, you know, lots of women can play that role too, because my mom raised me on her own. Eventually, when my dad took off and they got divorced, my mom had to be my mom and my dad, which is why I gravitated so much towards big boy.
Gotcha.
And all these
You
male
needed a
roles.
fatherly
Yeah, I
figure.
did. And I needed somebody to check me.
Yeah.
You know, because my dad, he checked me, but I was a kid. And, you know, it's different when you're a young man. When you're a
Totally.
teenager, I always feel like kids need their moms, right? Kids need their mothers.
Yeah.
But once you're a preteen and a teen, those need their fathers.
Yes.
Period. It's just how it works. That's why there's a perfect yin and yang balance to have that male role model, not just because he's a dude and he could be like, hey, don't talk to your mother like
Right.
that. But you need that.
Yeah.
You need that male dominance,
Yes.
in a sense. Not saying that men do more. It's just...
No, the energy is different.
The energy is different. Even with... well, I'm going to totally digress, but it comes down... And I don't want to compare kids to dogs, but just like with dogs, it's the tone of voice
Totally.
that you use and that
Oh
they
my
understand.
gosh. Yes.
you know?
I was so deadly afraid of my dad's yell.
Yes.
He never had to hit me once.
Right.
I was like, if I heard my dad, forget it. I was straightening up.
Yeah.
I was ready. I
that
was
look
vacuuming.
of disappointment in his eyes, right? It wouldn't even be a yell sometimes. It's
My
just
mom
like,
could throw anything she wanted at me and I wouldn't even be afraid. She would throw her shoe or the freaking vacuum, whatever it was,
Yeah.
and it didn't
My mom
scare
would throw
me.
like shampoo at me. It was- I mean,
Poor moms.
I remember she slapped me with her scarf one time. I was like, you know, that doesn't hurt, right?
Oh, did you ever have hair for her to pull?
Yeah, she didn't really pull my hair.
The hair pull is a good one.
I remember my mom and my sisters getting into crazy fights when I was a
okay,
kid.
so you have a sister.
I have 2 sisters. Actually, you know what? Here's an interesting fact about me, Darlene, is I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, but the 3 brothers and 1 sister are from my dad's side's previous marriage before me, and they're all in Mexico City. I don't really have I met them when I was like 10, 11, maybe 12. We hung out for like a summer.
Dang.
You know, and then they all went, and I never seen them again.
Dang.
And, you know, here
Are
we
you
are.
guys
now.
like friends on Facebook?
No, not at
No?
all. I don't even know if they're on Facebook,
Oh
or
my
you know, and
gosh.
I don't think they know how to find me because I'm under Sketch-O-Matic.
Oh,
they
yeah,
know me
yeah.
as Christian.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But where was going to go with this? As far as the family but my 2 sisters, yes, my 2 sisters from my mom are my half sisters, but they're more of my real full
Gotcha.
sisters because they raised me.
Okay.
I was raised by women,
Yes,
mostly.
yes.
Which is why I have such an affinity for,
women?
Yes, I mean they're wonderful.
I grew up with my mom and dad, and they've been together since 1985.
Yeah.
And I always had a good marriage to look towards.
Right.
And also, my husband's mom and dad were together even longer.
Are your mom and dad still married?
They are.
They are?
Yeah, they are.
What?
They're still married.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
fucking Mexican as
Yeah.
hell. You know?
They are. They're still married. They're still going every year. They go to Vegas for their anniversary.
Aw.
They're the best.
They hit the slot machines
Yeah,
together. I
they
love that.
it. They love going to
Yeah.
concerts. I try to hook them up whenever I can.
Do they go on road trips together?
All the time.
Yeah, you know, my grandparents used to do that.
Yeah.
They used to do road trips to,
Yeah.
to like the Grand Canyon.
Well, my dad was like a DJ in the 80s. And so we grew up with I grew up in the woofer. I don't know if you ever heard that joke by Dane Cook.
No.
I think it's Dane Cook.
Yeah,
but
Dane
he
Cook.
pretty much talks about I was in the woofer. I was dancing in the woofer or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And it always reminds me of me and my sister.
The whole place is fucking speakers. You think you're going into the bathroom and you're like, I am in the fucking woofer. How did I get in here? Oh my God, don't go in that door. That's not the bathroom, guys. That's the woofer. They should put a sign that says the woofer, because this is the bathroom.
It's like one of those raves when remember those kids that would wear the big white gloves
Yes.
and the glow sticks, and they get up right up in the speaker.
Yeah,
and be like,
totally. Yep.
and just not banging their
So
head.
my mom and dad grew up partying,
Yeah.
and then they just hit it off and have been in love ever since. So that's really awesome. But all of that to say that we had strong relationships to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I also never felt like I just wanted somebody real. I didn't want to go through the tangent of people of like, let me test all these guys. Like, I didn't mind dating. I like dating. But then after maybe a solid year and a half of dating, I was like, man, this is lonely.
Yeah, dating sucks.
Yeah, like I'm just ready to just settle and I want to move on and grow with somebody.
Yeah.
And so luckily, like, I mean, I know I'm lucky that I found that. And I've been able to build a life with Alex. And it's been... God, I mean, we've been married since 2010. So we got married later just because everything kept happening.
Let me ask you something in regards to your kids. Bella was born when? Who's older? Who's the oldest?
Bella's the oldest.
Bella's 15.
my firstborn.
When did she turn 16? It's coming up on 11.
No, she just turned 15.
Right. Okay. So, but when she turns 16, are you throwing a big party for her?
So here's the thing. A lot of people ask me that. Bella, her personality, she hates parties.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
she's antisocial.
She's anti. She would rather just like, let me have what I want in my room, on my bed, with my iPad. Let me chill and you guys do whatever you want. Like, she would handle the birthday cake well, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
Does she play video games?
No.
What is she like?
So Bella is super chill when she's not in a bad mood. She does have some pretty aggressive behaviors, and this is where I struggle a lot with her because she's considered nonverbal, which means that she cannot communicate using words. So she has an iPad that has about 200, she's built up to about 200 different icons that can help her communicate.
That's cool.
Okay. And so it's called Proloquo to Go. It's an app and they teach you this at school. And so she can request things on there when she feels like it. It's up to her, right?
Oh, wow.
But she can do it. But the thing is, she chooses to not be very vocal.
Communicative.
Yes. But then it hurts her when she can't express herself.
Yeah.
And when she's in pain or if she's just like not having it, when I can tell is I have to be really good at reading her cues and things like that.
And her body language.
And I've always done that since a baby. So that's never changed. And she is pretty severe, like on the spectrum, I would say, where she needs a lot of hand holding. She's still in a diaper. She's able to walk and she's able to handle certain situations, but when she turned 5, she got also diagnosed with autism.
Good Lord.
Yes.
I mean, it's
so
just...
she has a dual diagnosis and it's super rare.
How does that even... It's like a rare comet hitting your life.
It is. And scientists don't know why both of them happen
at the same damn time. I mean, was one after the other, or did she have it the entire time?
So Down syndrome you're born with because it's how your chromosomes
obviously.
are formed.
No, I meant the
autism came
autism,
years later, and I think it had to do with her seizures, but I can't prove that. So
interesting.
I've met other families along the way that have had similar situations where their babies had seizures at 6 months of age to a year, and they did certain treatments like Bella did, and then 2 to 3 years later down the road, they get diagnosed with autism. So
you have 3 kids.
Three kids,
yeah. And you have Bella and then your 2 sons. What are their names?
So then I had my second son, Alexander Christian.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And he was born 2 years later.
Nice.
And that Bella was actually hospitalized 1 year. She was about 13, 14 months old. And she had RSV. So she was in the hospital with that for about a week. And then I remember watching President Obama get inaugurated. That was when it was happening.
That was a hell of a party.
Yeah. And man, I was just like in the hospital watching history unfold.
Yeah, me too. And I remember crying when that happened.
I was really emotional.
There was a lot of electricity in the air. It seems like everywhere you drove in Burbank, here in LA, or especially in Burbank, because that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was working at Power 106 at Big Boys Neighborhood in the morning.
Yeah.
And I just remember being in my studio hearing the news and just like tearing up, not bawling, just crying.
It was emotional.
It was like, damn, this is like
happening.
This is change.
Yeah.
You know, and
totally.
Just the way he spoke. It was a really proud moment. Yeah. And also it just gave me a lot of hope for the future because here I was with my sick child in the hospital. Yeah. And about to give birth to.
And then I get pregnant right after.
Right.
And I freak out because I'm like, I can't handle another baby.
Were you worried about your son possibly having Down syndrome as well?
I was not even thinking about other kids, but I've learned that God likes to surprise me with pregnancies.
So you weren't planning on it. Were you planning on Bella?
Semi, yeah. Like we were talking about it, and
now what about your last kid?
No,
that was just a complete surprise.
I mean, come on, my kids are so old. Like my daughter was 14, my son was 12, and then I find out I was pregnant during COVID, and I had an IUD. So like, how
What's
does
an
somebody
IUD?
get pregnant?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's like an intrauterine device.
Yes,
it helps block
It's
sperm.
like a dam. It's like a dam. I know.
And it didn't work.
Oh,
and
my
I'm like,
God.
how did this baby really pop through all of that? So mind you, I'm super busy. I have these kids, but let me just kind of fast forward to make sense of my story.
Fast forward. Let's do it.
I have Bella. I'm a new mom. I'm lost. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I'm a stay-at-home mom, mind you. I get pregnant shortly after with my second. I start writing out my thoughts on a blog. Back then it was called Blogger. And one day I get a response from a stranger, and they were like, "Thank you for sharing this. I had a similar experience of my kid being in the hospital." And I wrote about how sad and how lonely it felt to have a baby and not be able to bring the baby home with you.
Right.
And I had to drive home with all the balloons and all the flowers in my back seat.
And no baby.
And car seat.
Yeah.
And no baby.
Yeah. And all the setup at home for the nursery. Everything's
Like,
ready to go.
Everything I wasn't expecting to happen happened.
Jesus.
And so my whole life changed, right? That's when the shift happened, where I removed my ego because I had to. And then everything was about keeping this baby alive.
Right.
And so my whole life became about this baby. Like, I even lost my own sense of self because I'm a very empathetic person to begin with. So like, I was just feeling everything Bella was feeling, and I was just so distraught, and I wanted to make sure that I was trying to cover all the bases. And so when I felt that instant connection of a stranger responding to my blog, which I thought nobody listened, it reminded me of you, how you always say nobody's listening.
Yeah,
But,
nobody
like,
is listening.
I'm listening.
Yeah, well, you are. I mean, it's as far as like, the masses.
you know what
but
I mean?
yeah, I mean, I'm a little modest. It's about 12 people listening.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, be quiet.
No.
So anyway, yeah. So I understand though, because I was that same way. Like, nobody's gonna listen. But that was right around the time that social media was emerging.
Yeah.
And then so I think MySpace was definitely out. And I would write little, like for Christmas, I would write updates on Bella, and I would send it in my Christmas cards. And it's funny because people would respond and write back or call me and say, "I always appreciate your updates." And then it gave me like fuel, like it was passion.
Yes, I know that feeling, because I got to jump in here.
Yeah.
The fact that you say you listen to every episode is very important to me. I do say that nobody really listens, but the truth is people do listen. I am almost up to 1,000
There you
plays as a whole total.
Okay.
Right.
And you barely started like a few months ago.
It was at the end of July.
Okay.
The end of July, right, and then right after Tim Conway Jr., my account got suspended, which really sent me into a spiral. It physically had an effect on me. I literally started getting these like
hives.
It's almost like a hive, but it was like not a boil, but an ingrown hair around my ankle, right? And it turned into this real big, it looked like I was turning into brindlefly.
Oh,
you know what I mean? I was
gosh.
like, what the hell's going on here? I was like, God damn you, Instagram. And it gave me this, but then that's when you started communicating, going, "Oh, I love the podcast." And other people that I worked with in radio that live, like for example, my friend Al Coda, who lives up in Seattle, over in Seattle. I'm going to say up because they are north.
Yeah.
Okay, he lives up in Seattle, and he worked at Power with me for years, and he was on the air. He has a son of his own now, but he listens, and these people listen, and I'm like, you know what? That is important to me. It gives me fuel, like you said. It gives me the fuel to keep going. And it's very supportive, and I do appreciate. And even for Thanksgiving, I gave shout outs to people who supported me since day one.
And here's the thing, you have to know you're doing this for you, but also you're doing it for the people listening. And you got to do it when it feels right. You can't force it.
Right.
I know you feel pressure. I can tell, like, I don't know you that well, but I sense you feel pressured to keep an episode going weekly.
Yeah.
Because it is important to have, like a
schedule.
steady thing, like people like that. Yeah. But also people realize, like, when you're as real as it gets, that life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And, we recently had to push back because you and I both lost somebody that we both know, and I didn't even know you knew him.
Oh, Forrest. So, yeah, let's talk about that. I wanted to talk about, he just passed away. Forrest Martin. For those who don't know him, he was an incredible human being, a very kind soul, very intricate with the technical and the audio ear he had. He would buy all these vintage, out of this world, like sound machines that you couldn't find. And sometimes I think he would even build them himself with like vacuum tubes and crazy shit. And Again, I didn't know him that well. I only met him through Kelly. Shout out to Kelly, otherwise known as K3. Kelly Doherty, one of my, if not, she's like a sister to me.
Okay.
For sure, as well as a very dear friend to me as well. But yeah, Forrest, he passed away from liver cancer, unfortunately, at the age of 45 years old, I believe. And it is very scary. How did you know Forrest?
When I started interning here, well, because we're going back and forth a lot, I'm going to zoom really quick. I did the blog, and then my husband told me, you can do something doing this as a job. And surprised me one day and took me to the Academy of Radio Broadcasting. And I had like a little interview, and they made you feel super important. And we're like, we're looking for your voice. Like, yes, sign up now. And it was like $13,000 to do a 7-month program.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you ever hear of that place?
I did vaguely, and I never went to school for radio. I did take a quick course in Hollywood at some old building one time that they would let you do a demo.
Gotcha.
And then they'd play it on like an AM station at 4 a.m, right?
So similar
it was sort
vibes.
of, yeah, but it only cost like a couple of $100.
Yeah, well, while I was there, and I promise I'm circling back to Forrest.
Go ahead. No,
he has a lot to do with the beginning of my story.
We're going to come back to Forrest right now.
Right when I went there, they made you feel super important. They want you to sign up. They're like, sign for this loan. Let's do it. You could start on Monday. Then at the end, they closed with, oh, wow, you came all the way from Pomona. Do you happen to know a Tammy Trujillo? And I was like, I have no idea who that is. This is my first time ever coming to some radio place. And so I was really excited because I was like, dang, I can do this. Like, this is right up my alley. I'm already doing it for free.
Okay,
like,
I got to ask you this now.
Yes.
We're not going to digress. I'm going to dive deeper into the radio thing. And then we're going to circle back to Forrest and imaging director, audio extraordinaire, creative mind Forrest Martin. We're going to get back to
comedian.
that. Yes, and comedian, and just a naturally funny guy. I'm just naturally funny looking. So when it comes to radio, okay, earlier you had said at the beginning when we were talking about your dad and your family, your dad was a DJ in the early 80s.
Just a party DJ.
DJ, right? And none of your family, and I always ask this about my guests, none of your family was in media. None of your family was on television, radio, nothing. But your dad was a party DJ, and he had turntables.
On the side. My dad did tile floors for the union, and he went far with that and did that for as long as I was alive. And but on the weekends, he was a DJ with his brother.
What was his DJ name?
I know everybody knew him as Tony, but like my
funny how most Mexican DJs are named Tony.
My uncle Jimmy actually like spearheaded the whole thing, and then my dad was like his party crew, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was in a party crew. Yeah.
So I never really remembered their party crew name, but I know that there was a party crew.
My party crew name was Success.
Gosh, really?
Culver City Success.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And they were like targeting the Whittier area, and so they did parties and nightclubs, and then eventually my uncle and my dad bought houses next door to each other, so they connected their backyards, and it was just a huge party.
Awesome. My uncle had his backyard connected to his best friend in Studio City.
Yeah.
That is what you're the only other person that I've ever met. I'm sure other people have that.
Yeah.
But you're the only one that I've met that had their uncle do the same thing.
So our backyards connected.
Brilliant.
And so it was actually a far thought. Like my family thought I was crazy for even attempting it. But I just went balls to the wall and I chopped my hair off. I went with the whole fresh new look. I mean, I had like the whole pixie cut going on, and I buzzed half of my head, and everyone was thinking like, she's losing her mind. It's finally happening, because they were expecting it, right? I had these babies.
And you're a mom.
I was a young mom.
What were your kids thinking when you're like, why are you shaving that side of your hair, mommy?
They just thought I was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It's very futuristic. Yeah.
And my neighbor did hair, and she was like, I'll hook you up, girl. So she still does my hair. Shout out Ashley Beauty Box in LA. But man, it was just like the change I needed, and it gave me new life. Like I finally found what
you found your calling. You found your voice.
And I learned that I needed that, because if I was just 24/7 focused on Bella, I was going to be sick all the time.
What were you doing for work before radio?
Oh my gosh, I worked at Best Buy for years. I sold mobile phones, and then I was a barista at Starbucks.
So you had regular jobs.
Yeah, I was always regular jobs.
And you didn't have an inkling to want to get into radio.
No, I thought I would be a teacher.
Yeah, I could see you as a teacher.
No, I was totally teacher type. And it's funny because I feel like my job as a producer now, as a teacher, you're always chronically observing your students. And now I'm chronically observing my radio hosts and what their needs are. And you have to find different ways to reach different audiences, right? So all of that, because I did go to school to be a teacher, and all of that helped me with my job now.
Absolutely.
And I also like to use it as an analogy. A producer is like a wedding planner because you are in charge of every single detail behind the wedding to remove the bride from all of that stress so that they can focus on their day.
Yeah, they're the star.
Right?
That's the star.
That's the best way. Whenever I go to schools and I talk about career day and blah, 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 that's my best when people ask, what does a producer do?
Right.
And it's all those little details that mean so much.
I have to say, like, a lot of people have a misconception about producers. The
They
word
do.
producer is a very broad statement.
It
It's like
is.
saying music. Well, what kind of music?
I know.
Airlines. Well, what
Yeah.
airline? I mean, there's a million different ones.
Yep.
When it comes to producers in radio, I like to refer to producers as like directors as well.
Yes.
Jason Ryan, who is the executive producer of Big Boys Neighborhood, is the executive producer. That is his title. However, he is a director. He's like the Spielberg.
Totally.
You know what I mean? He gives,
Totally.
big the X signs, cut here. Oh, go longer. He makes the longer with his
Yeah.
hands, go longer, keep going. It's that kind of chemistry they have that makes the show so dynamic. A producer is also known as what Dr. Dre does. He's a
Yes,
producer, but
that's
he's a
true.
music producer. He produces beats. I am a radio producer, commercial production producer, meaning I produce commercials. I produce imaging.
Yes.
Imaging producer.
What is
But
imaging for somebody that doesn't know?
imaging is like all the little sweepers and the intros. Like, for example, when you listen to Big Boys Neighborhood and you hear Luigi's Rotten Tamales,
Okay.
right?
Luigi's Rotten Tamales Review.
Or Luigi's Mom Knows Best.
Okay.
It's time for Mom
Hey, shut up.
Knows Best
Mom's knows best.
with Louis G and his mom,
Don't be dumb.
Lourdes.
You're not a kid. You're old man.
Those intros that they play is made by me, voiced by me, and put together by me, and that's a production that I produced for imaging for Big Boys Neighborhood.
Gotcha.
That's what. And then there's Quasi, who does the imaging. He's the imaging director of
Okay.
Real 92.3.
Okay.
And he creates all the promos. Big Boys Bankroll.
Yeah.
It's not him talking, but it's
Yeah.
him producing. What were you going to say? Go
They're
ahead.
the sound of the station, right?
Yes.
Yes, because David J would do it for our station.
And we're in David J's former studio
yes,
right
we
now
are.
recording this. Shout out to David J.
And it was like KOST is such a iconic station in LA.
Oh, yeah.
So when you hear the KOST 103.5, that's imaging.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's jingles. Those are
Jingles and part of the whole batch of the array of things that you guys
so
do.
what's make the stations pop.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I just
Stand
popped the
out.
mic. Yeah, it just it makes the stations pop. It makes you go, oh man, I want to hear that. Or and
Yes.
you're like, if you missed Big Boys Neighborhood this morning, here's what you missed. And then you hear some clip, and it's like Big Boys Neighborhood every morning, 5 to
Yes.
10, Real 92.3. That's imaging, and that's what I do for Big Boy in particular.
And that's
Chase
a
Cuts.
whole job that is so undervalued and underrepresented.
Yeah.
I think that if you're listening and you're wanting to get into radio and you're good at that already, definitely pursue it. But also keep in mind that it's going to be hard for you to strike gold.
Oh, it's fucking hard. I'm almost 45 years old. I'm still struggling with a K.
And you're so talented.
Thank
and
you.
I know, for example, my friend David J., who we just mentioned,
Yes.
he did it for years.
Oh my God,
like
years.
almost
Decades.
30, I think.
Decades.
And he has so much experience. And now I know he's looking for a job. So shout out to him if you want to hire him. He's ready to go.
Yeah.
But man, it's really hard because our industry is changing so much.
It is. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller by the day.
And what you do is so hard.
It is. You know, it's crazy. It's a fameless, not thankless, because I do get thanked
Let's
by
just
my
talk
colleagues.
shit real quick.
Yeah, okay, let's shit talk.
So,
Go ahead.
So what is the problem? What do you see as the problem?
In imaging or just in production?
In the job market right now.
Oh, okay. Is this what we were talking about earlier off podcast
Yes.
air? In regards to, okay, well, I don't want to talk, I'm not talking shit about my colleagues or other people.
No,
it's
just
it's
broad.
Yeah, broad statement is, here's what I don't like. In radio, and I think this goes for any person's job in any industry.
It's true,
okay?
yeah.
It's the fact of we're all trying to get through the day to get to the end of the day so that we can clear our tasks,
Mm-hmm.
right? Get the money that is going to be paid to whoever and go home, right? And then repeat the process all over again. In radio, particularly in radio, for me, because it's where I work, I seem to never get replies from people. And the thing is like, I'm not asking people to take me out to lunch, to take me to Morton's Steakhouse. I'm not asking for your social security number.
Yeah.
I just want to, hey, did you get the script? I need that 30-second spot. Send me your audio. And I know people are busy, but then when I hear the excuse of I didn't see it, or my Wi-Fi modem got abducted by the abominable snowman, and then it turned into a mermaid and it swam back into my apartment. It's just like, dude, this is why Steve Jobs died making these iPhones, okay? So that you can look at your phone while you're walking, while you're doing whatever, and just go, yep, thumbs up, or oh, stand by, or there's a custom reply. I'm busy, I'm driving, I'll call you in a minute. But yet, in the same breath of these people, oh, I didn't see it. Oh, I didn't know it was there. Oh, I didn't do this. I didn't do. In the same breath, they're saying that, and they're holding their phones, posting a selfie. Like, are you serious?
You're like, do your job. You're the one getting all that money.
I'm not getting a single red cent.
That makes sense.
And I still produce every spot, no matter who it's for, what client. They all get treated with the same attention to detail and TLC as the next person, which means I'm going to fry your fucking eyelashes off when you hear it. It's going to be. That's why it's like me working in commercial production at iHeart is, and I've told this to the uppers here.
Yeah.
I said, hey man, you guys got a sweet deal. Okay, you got me, who is an imaging guy, producing your commercials. In a sense, you're cheating.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're using one guy who's really better at this to produce this.
Yeah,
and everything he produces is like, whoa.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm the bomb, but I kind of am because I put in my 10 million hours. And I'm still struggling.
Yeah,
but you know what? That's okay because it's the pursuit of happiness, right? I saw this in a movie one time. I can't remember which movie, but it was an actor who said, it's not just about the pursuit of happiness. It's about finding happiness in the pursuit, right? It's just being in the game, being in this studio right now in David J's former studio, wearing these headphones, having a podcast with you, being able to edit and do all these things on my own. That's the pursuit. That's what I love. And I'm married to the game. I don't have any kids. I'm not married. I've recently become more sober as far as drinking.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's New Year's Day of 2023 will be my 2 years, right? And I'm excited about that because it's finally a gift I gave to myself that I really needed.
Yeah.
And it made me focus and it just opened up my eyes. It's the same set of eyes that I'm looking through, but now crystal clear sober.
Crazy.
I mean, granted, I still smoke weed, but that doesn't count. But yeah, drinking, it changed the chemistry in my brain and it killed my mom. So
totally.
It's just one of those things I needed to just stop. And once I stopped, I was able to really hone in on this, the podcasting, the production, stepping my game up. I listen to Howard Stern fucking religiously. And it's not just because I'm a fan, it's because I listen to their imaging, their production, their phony phone calls, and I go, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that, but not to copy, but to apply and use it for Big Boy in a different way, but the same objective.
Gotcha.
And that's what I do. So
That's
sorry,
cool.
I just went on an imaging rant right there.
That gives us a good idea because again, producers and imaging directors and all of that, it's hard to explain what you do.
Yeah.
And so
it's like I'm Banksy of audio, but everybody's already seen my funny face. So,
and so what ends up happening is I find out, I Google who Tammy Trio is because I'm leaving the ARB.
So this is you now going into radio, right?
Yes.
So you've worked all these regular jobs. What time is it, by the way? Oh my God, we're already at 106.
Yes.
Holy shit.
I know.
And it's getting hot in here.
I know. I'm going to give you the speed down version. And so they asked me if I know Tammy because Tammy used to teach there. And now Tammy runs a different program somewhere closer to where I live, which they should have never said because then I Google who she is and she ends up being the radio broadcasting teacher at Mount San Antonio College, which is the local community college by where I live. And so I go straight to Mount Sac, literally from leaving that place.
You said San Antonio, though.
Yeah, it's called Mount San Antonio College.
Okay. I was like, really?
And it's in Walnut.
I see.
And so I literally take off from Huntington Beach, go straight to Walnut to the college, and find that office. And I'm like, how do I sign up? And instead of paying $13,000, I literally got covered, no student loans, did community college courses, got an internship at KOST, met Forrest. So I met him during my internship here, and Forrest and David J were like, they were like husband and wife. They were inseparable.
Like Ozzy and Harriet,
yes,
was it, right?
Yeah. They were always together, and he would always walk in and open the door, and he would say, David, do you remember the time? And then he would share a story, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like classic. So they made my first days in radio so fun and just so warm, and like it just felt like, okay, cool, my friends are here.
Family,
right?
it's family.
Yeah. And then I lost touch with him because
With Forrest? Right.
With Forrest,
Right.
because my internship ended, but right before my internship ended, I got a job at KNX 1070,
Yeah.
which was the competitor back then.
Yeah.
They were with CBS Radio, and
I'm not gonna lie, I like KNX.
Do you?
They're pretty dope. They're pretty dope. I like just their delivery and their talent or their personalities. I like them.
I worked with all of the anchors and reporters. I was their assistant, so I was their news production assistant.
Did you ever do anything on air?
Yes.
Let's dive further into that.
Okay.
Into you getting on air for your first time. Besides you coming to KOST and doing
Okay.
your internship, where did you get on air first? Like the first time you talked on a microphone, was
Outside
it
of being an intern?
outside during an intern? Just in general,
Okay.
first time ever in front of an on-air microphone.
You know
Where
what's
was
funny?
it?
Bella has always been my gateway to my career.
Oh, yeah?
And so because I had this pretty insane story of being a young mom, having a child with special needs, and being a radio student, Mark Wallengren, who did mornings at the time,
Yes.
had me as his intern, and he worked really closely with the Down syndrome community because his neighbor had Down syndrome. And anyway, long story short,
Go
he
ahead.
just had a lot of love for the Down syndrome community. So when he found out about Bella's story, he would invite me to talk about her.
So he gave you your first chance to
Yes.
talk on the air. Were you nervous?
No.
You weren't. You
And
were
that's,
ready.
That's what was funny. I thought I would be nervous, but because it was such it's just my life and like so comfortable talking about it, it gave me that fuel again.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care how much they're paying me. I just want to keep doing this.
Yeah,
like I
you
want to be
found
a
it.
voice.
Yes,
right?
and you found your calling in radio.
Yes.
It may not have been like I'm going to be an on-air personality,
Right.
but to be in the game.
Yes, in
You know-
LA.
Yes, I mean, come on. I know New York's number one, but let's face it,
In LA.
is the entertainment
And
capital
mind
of
you,
the
like
world.
my grandma from Ecuador immigrated from Ecuador to LA in the 60s or 70s, and she came out here as a single mom, raised 3 kids, did it in this city, this magical city, and now I'm on the radio in LA. Like
with
that's
Ellen K.
crazy.
I mean,
with Ellen
K is iconic.
Yeah, she
on
just got in
air.
the Radio Hall of Fame, which
I
she should
know.
have been in years ago.
I know. Let's real quick. I'm gonna play a round of applause for Ellen K. Ellen K. I just met Ellen K. through you,
Yes.
because of the Friday Morning Lights
Yes.
intro that I made, which I'm gonna say it. I was hella fucking clever on that thing
Yes, I loved it.
I'm not gonna go into the exact detail. I think I actually did on a previous
Yeah, you
podcast.
did.
I did, and it was the Liz podcast, and Liz is all, "Are you sure you want to play the intro you made for me? I don't want to get you." I'm like, "Yeah, nobody's listening. Nobody cares."
I know, I was laughing at that too.
But I'm gonna play it again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it again right now.
K's Friday Morning Lights.
Well, this is a very special moment. Coach Madrano, welcome to the very first of the year Friday Morning Lights.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So then I did my stint at KNX and I had a great time. News is a different beast for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But this was pre-Trump, mind you. So I
Okay.
can't imagine
Oh,
what it was
boy.
like after that. And so I worked there for about a year and a half, and then KOST had an opening for a full-time position. And, that's rare in the industry.
Yeah.
And Mark hired me as his morning show producer.
Okay, so you were working with Mark first before Ellen got the morning
Yes,
show.
yes.
Wow, this is some serious history
Yes,
right here. How
yes.
long has Ellen been on the morning show of her own?
7 years now.
Only 7?
Yes.
It seems like it's been longer.
Yeah, 7.
Wow.
So when that same year that
Mm-hmm.
all that shift happened, Mark hires me 6 months before he moves to afternoons.
Right.
And then he goes to afternoon drive. They bring Ellen over from KISS FM.
Yes.
So not only am I like a fresh morning producer,
Yes.
but I'm now helping Ellen launch
her morning show.
Her morning show,
This
the Ellen K morning
it's a
show.
whole new, again, uncharted territories. Ellen K has had a long history of being on air with Rick Dees,
And
right?
Ryan
and Ryan Seacrest, of course. But then to get switched over to KOST and doing her own show.
No imaging, no sweepers, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
We literally looked at each other and we were like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I don't know. We're just going to do it one step at a time.
holding hands, like scared, like what is tomorrow going to bring? And I remember her cracking the mic for the first time, and it was Black Eyed Peas, I Got a Feeling.
Yeah.
And she got to choose that song. And so she was like, okay, I'm excited. And then after that, she was like, okay, now what?
What's the next thing?
What's funny is people were so condescending. I remember her talking about this, that somebody asked her, so what's your show even going to be about? And like trying to kind of quiz her. And
of course.
she was like, it's going to be about feel good stuff and great, happy stories and positive momentum and this and that. And like, it's sad that people would even put her in that position, because you know what? I'm so glad and I'm happy to say that she did it and she continues doing it. And it's really hard to be such a positive force in a day like today. Like it's actually a breath of fresh air. Or did I?
Yeah, no, that's it. It's a breath of fresh air. Yes, because people need her. Yeah. People need that energy. They need that voice. It's a family voice. It's a relationship.
It's totally. And so anything we can do to connect with the community, with our callers, build that relationship, that rapport, help you guys out. They help us out in return. It's been such a beautiful journey that 7 years feels like it's been double that amount of time.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's just been such an incredible time to build with her and have that experience.
And you're still building.
And we're still like, we have this vault that we're just so proud of all of our special sounds and our callers and things that we've played throughout the years that we can recall and say, hey, remember this? Let's play that now.
Right.
And so that's the beauty of it all, right? The magic of piecing it all together, having those memories, building upon them.
And then executing them. When they're on air, there's a certain feeling of satisfaction you get. When I hear my production, my tributes, when I stay up, unfortunately when Takeoff from Migos passed away recently, shout out to Migos and Migos family and all that, but he passed away and I didn't know. Guess when he passed? He passed away
the day after Halloween.
It was Tuesday morning, right? Because Halloween was on a Monday this year. And I interviewed Liz Hernandez that Monday, and I didn't know anything until that next night at 10 o'clock because of my friend DJ Splice, who posted on his Instagram a picture of Takeoff. And then I saw another picture and it just said, it had a sad emoji face. And I'm like, and it was 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, dude, I checked TMZ and I'm like, I knew right then. I'm like, I got to produce a tribute. Yeah. And I produced it, knocked it out by 4 a.m, went to bed. But when I woke up, I get a text from Big and Jason going, love it. Let's start the show with this at 6. That's satisfaction right there. And I don't mean to build off Takeoff's demise or to his brutal passing, but it's the satisfaction of knowing this is important in the hip hop culture. Totally. And I'm going to amplify how important Migos and Takeoff is/was to the community by doing this. And I don't get paid extra for that. And I don't want to get paid extra for that. It's something to give back to what they gave to us.
Totally.
That's all.
The thing is that no matter what, he was so young to have such an impact.
28.
You know, like that's ridiculous. Like I'm still in shock over his death.
And
when I hear about it, like I know he was the quietest guy.
It seems like it wasn't intended for him. But this is why you shouldn't have a gun.
And how awful that it was just all on tape. Everybody's seen it. Yeah. It's like, gosh. And those are the moments that remind us how fragile life is and how we're all trying to get through this difficult life.
Yeah.
Because life is hard.
Yeah. It
life
sucks.
Is so
it's
hard.
Absurd. It sucks. It's unfair. And it doesn't, and you know, what's crazy is just like a Neil deGrasse Tyson says, the universe is under no obligation to make sense to any of us.
It's not. And it's so true. And anytime we can try to connect with you, and I'm speaking to you as the listener, that's the magic. And luckily we have a great team. Ryan Mano runs the boards and he's been in radio for years coming from Chicago. And so anything we ask him to do, he's like, I got it. And then he's there right there. Like, I want to challenge you and him. And also, who else was really fast at Vox? At like editing on Vox? EJ is
and JoJo.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing to watch how fast he is. Like, his fingers sound like they hurt.
I know. I used to be like that on Orban Odyssey. Do you remember those machines?
No.
They were like imagine Vox Pro, but with 10 tracks.
Oh man.
And same thing with a little jog wheel board that you can edit and has the little alloy wheel and you can spin the wheel.
I've seen it at school.
And you just, it's like all that stuff. But I learned on that first because I wasn't on Pro Tools first.
Okay.
I got on Pro Tools later. I don't really edit on Vox Pro because that's more for on air and recording callers and interviews real quick and then editing them on the fly. And that's what Ryan Mano does. That's what you're referring to for the person listening that may not know what the hell we're talking about. But Vox Pro is an editing machine. Essentially, it's like a reel-to-reel, but in computer. Yes. Right? And that's what Orban Odyssey was. It was a reel-to-reel, but with 10 tracks, and you could edit at 100 miles an hour on there, and it cost $17,000 brand new.
Did it really?
Yes, it was a big machine. It was like a whole rig. And then, of course, you'd have to replace the parts and this and that. But when you're saying the challenge of who can edit faster or whatever, I mean, look, you look at Quasi.
Yeah.
You look at Miles, the imaging director at KISS FM, who's now back in Ohio, but he was out here in LA. He survived the pandemic and then moved back. But these guys are true master craftsmen at their job. They know what to I even surprise
you're
myself
up there too.
Well, I surprise myself when I'm editing at home or even here, and I'm editing, I'm not even thinking. I see you're going to another thought real quick.
No,
Go ahead.
I have a question for you because I want to know, you've edited sound through the years.
Yes.
What do you remember being the craziest way you had to create sound?
Oh, well, I would do a lot of... Okay, that's a really good question. I love how you just flipped the podcast on me. Well done there, Darlene. Social Queen Darlene. Follow her on Instagram at Social Queen Darlene. Okay. The craziest way to make sound, I would make sound before there was plentiful of YouTube sound effects and stuff to grab off the internet.
Yeah.
Plural, internets. I would actually, when I was working at Power, I had a mini disc recorder, and I would, if I needed a sound effect, for example, we used to do a lot of bits in the morning, right? Like character bits. And we had this one character bit named Sanchez, who is like always trying to get into America from Mexico, right? And these writers, the comedians that wrote up the bits, I was going to say sketches, but that's an SNL thing. But they wrote up the bits, and I would produce them. But then one of the bits had Sanchez trying to climb a chain link fence. And I couldn't find a chain link fence sound effect.
Oh, so you had to climb one?
I went outside, and I had my boy DJ Reflex. Shout out to DJ Reflex, right? I actually I saw him driving up in front of Power, parking his car to go do his on air because he DJ'd on air. And he's like, hey, what's up, Sketch 'em all? Hey, Reflex, can you do me a favor? Can you hold this microphone right here towards this fence? I'm going to jump over the fence. And he's like, okay.
Hey, you'll do anything for sound.
And I did it, and it came out flawed. And even we did a character named Bustacap, who was a rapper who would shoot his engineers because his engineers would tell him how whack he is at rapping. And that was his shtick was, hickory dickory, this beat is real funny. Trickery. And they'd be like, Busta, that was a really whack take. You're going to have to do it again. What'd you say? And this is, he would shoot the engineer. And I needed an engineer to fall out of a chair sound effect. Couldn't find one that was dynamic enough. So I put the mic on the floor, knocked the chair over. I would do like Foley work. Foley work is what those sound effects guys do in movies. When you see the guys running on gravel in front of the screen, or they add like the glass breaking, an actual glass breaking, and they record it. That's Foley work. And I've always kind of wanted to do that in actual movies. Yeah,
that's cool.
But that was a good question.
Yeah, I always wondered that when I was listening to your stuff. I'm like, I'm sure he has crazy stories of making sound, or even like having to edit, because I know you have to deal with PPOs a lot, which are like orders for commercials in our system. And PPO
stands for Paperless Production Order.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but backwards it's OPP. Yeah, you know me.
Well, with PPOs, because you deal with them all the time, I'm like, I'm sure he has stories where he's had to edit old PPOs to configure them and Frankenstein them.
You want to do a real quick? I'm just going to give you. We'll circle back to that question about let's shit talk real quick. Yeah. It's funny, and EJ even said this. And again, I'm not talking shit about my colleagues. It is the cutting corners that is frustrating sometimes, because when you have to take a word like the word the or tonight, right, and splice it into a new commercial where the same personality is reading, but he's now reading it in a different, slightly different octave. The inflection. And you want it to sound seamless. And I'm pretty good at that. Yeah. I'm good at it. But people take that for granted. They're, well, can't you just pull it from an old spot? Yes, but it's going to sound like holy edit, Batman. Come tonight.
Yes.
Dude, it's just so... And then
I am.
Yeah. It's almost like one of those audio books that Howard Stern cuts up. You know what I mean? And it's just like, well, then I went to the and had a giant bowl of weed. and I smoked it with Oprah. Like it doesn't sound. It sounds obviously edited, but I get it. Sometimes you're in a bind. There's no other choice. It's like break glass in case of emergency time, and that's fine. But when it comes down to it, you got to just do the whole thing over again.
Yeah.
And the problem is sometimes it's just a 30-second read. Just do it over. How much are you getting paid for this?
I know.
You know? But hey, that's right. That's show business.
It is.
That's how it is. And a lot of the people that are asking me to do the splice magic, they don't understand the technical logistics that go into it. It's just like, hey, we need to get this done. Do it. I don't care how it's done. Just do it. Great. And then I send it and I'm like, and they're like, oh yeah, that does sound edited. But sometimes that's all you have to. That's all you have to go with. And most of the time, the lay person, meaning the general public who listens, who aren't in radio, they don't care.
Yeah,
they don't care. They're not. Oh, I heard a wrong date in there. I'm not listening to this station
or
anymore.
even the people that write the scripts, right? Because sometimes you're like, damn, who wrote this? Yeah, this is really bad. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Or they'll just send copy points. It's like 100. It's like 100 different lines of copy points, and you have to write your own script.
Sometimes when we get those a lot, and I'm like, I can't give this to Ellen.
Yeah,
she has like 10,000 things to do. I'm not going to just hand her bullet points. Yeah. So then there I am trying to pretend to speak like her, right? Because you want it to sound right.
You have
like
to think like Ellen K.
And it's helped over the years, but God, I remember that was like, oh, who did this?
It gets a little
dicey.
Dicey, great word. It gets a bit dodgy. Can you do any accents, Darlene?
No, hell no.
Can you sound super like chola? No. Can you be like, you know how other Latinos in LA are like, oh my God, I live in LA.
The most I can do, because I actually learned how to speak Spanish by reading hymns from my grandma's church.
Wow.
And so, because I would have to go to church with her. Since my parents were partying on the weekend, I had to go to church.
Oh, you had to pay the sins of the father and mom.
Right? And so shout out to my grandma, though, because she taught me a lot and gave me a great foundation. At the same time, scared the crap out of me. Like, the world's ending by the time you're 15 and blah, 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 whatever. So long story short.
And we're still here.
I learned that I can really speak, like if I had to read something in Spanish, I can like do that.
So you can sound really like almost like you don't speak English.
Yes, but I have to like feel it.
Can you kind of do like and quote unquote, I know people are going to get mad about this, but it's like a paisa accent.
No,
you can't do it. You can't do like, you want to come to the one?
I grew up with a lot of paisas and
you want to come to the one, Darlene?
No.
Dude, your dad, he's a DJ? He's the DJ, he goes out right here? Okay.
Yeah, no, I can't.
No,
I can't.
No.
I think a lot of people kind of made fun of my accent because I sounded normal, I guess.
You don't have an accent.
Yeah.
Just like me, I'm from Mexico City. I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
I can if you tell me what to say.
Yeah.
But as to put words together, but I'm glad that I don't have that. And what's crazy, and I told this to somebody on one of these episodes, that I was born in Mexico City. My first language was Spanish as a baby. And then I came to San Fernando, and my sisters who grew up out here are also Mexican.
Did they know Spanish?
They do know Spanish, but they sound white. They sound like there's a standard American accent.
Do I sound white?
You sound, you could sound white. I sound white. Not white the race. It's just the standard American accent, which is no accent. It's very like, hello, how are you?
Yeah.
There's no inflection of any accent.
Have you seen Cristela Alonso's stand-up? She does a bit and she says, I know 3 languages. Yeah. I know English, Spanish, and then I know work language. Yeah. And it's like how you speak professionally at work.
I got it. Yeah. And you know what's crazy is working here for iHeart in the corporate world, because Power 106 is like college to me.
Okay.
I mean,
you say that a lot. Do you mean like messy?
Not messy,
or
meaning like me
party?
messy.
Okay.
Me being party.
You were so young.
I was young, but not that young. I started at Power in 98 when I was 19.
That's
right?
young.
I was young. And I was kind of forced to grow up quickly because I was handed quite a bit of obligations, but it was still fun. It was still party. It's just I got into party favors. And I got into, of course, DJing, it comes with the territory. And as DJing got more and more popular, and when Serato was invented, and DJs and DJ Vice and DJ AM, these guys were rock stars, rock star DJs. And AM, yes, he dabbled in drugs and whatnot. Obviously, unfortunately, he passed away from that. But, oh shit, now the studio's falling apart. But like the party favors for me was my messy part for Power. It just went on. I did too much. I was suffering from depression. I would always get into these really intense relationships with really beautiful women.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Do you think that's where the,
yes,
all
absolutely.
the women, drugs, all
drinking.
that?
And what's crazy is out of all and I've never done crack, never done heroin, right? But I've taken plenty of Molly, and back when it was just ecstasy, and that changes the chemistry of your brain. It lowers your serotonin, makes you irritable. Messed around with Adderall, did a lot of coke, and drank a lot.
Do you miss any of it?
Not really, no. I don't even remember what alcohol tastes like.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Like, I just remember how shitty I felt after. I always loved how it made me feel because it lowered my inhibitions and I was able to talk to everybody easier and have that liquid courage when I DJ in front of a crowd.
Okay.
Because, drinking and DJing kind of go hand in hand, right? But then once you get to that point where you start to black out.
I don't need it.
Yeah. Well, I would start to black out, and then I'd wake up the next day.
How did I get here?
And I'd wake up and go like, how did I get here?
Dang.
And I'd see texts, like mean texts that I wrote.
Oh my gosh.
Or like just somebody from who I went out with, like, hey man, that wasn't cool, sketch. Like.
Did everybody know you were a hot mess though?
Yeah, that wasn't a hot mess. I just drank to the point where I was the guy who was like, no, I got it. I'm going to pay for everybody's drink. And then I wake up the next day and go, oh my God. I'd look at my receipt and be like, oh my God, what did I do?
Question for you.
Go ahead.
So because you were dabbling in all of this stuff at a really young age, were you making good enough money then to do that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
sure.
then the money, all of that.
Yeah, it was like fame. Like I got to a very high place with Big Boy, like working at Power. And I didn't have like a cocky attitude, like I'm at Power.
Right.
I'm the shit now. I'm a diva. It was just more of like, dude, I'm here and I'm making a shit ton of money. And
you can't blame it. At
and
the
I'm
same
19.
Time. Yeah.
And I didn't even drink then. It was just about ecstasy for me back then.
Okay.
But then it played into my attitude at work, and it wasn't professional. I wasn't professional. I always had an attitude. I was always mad about shit. I gotta edit. What? I already did it. What do you mean you didn't like it? That sound effect is perfect.
Dang.
I was kicking and screaming, and it's just like, dude, just fucking do it.
Did anybody
man.
ever check you?
Oh yeah, of course. Big Boy had to check me all the time. Like, not all the time, but he would be concerned.
Yeah.
Like, man, what's going on, sketch? Like, something's up. Like, he knew I had a problem. They let me do what I wanted to do as long as the work was done. They were concerned though, but they weren't trying to interfere with, like, you're not going to live your life like that. You better get sober.
Okay.
They never did that. I kind of wish they did.
Knowing what you know now, and you saw somebody in that position, what are you saying to them?
I'm just saying, look, I've been there. It doesn't really help. It's fun. It is fun. Coke is fun. Drinking's fun. But the problem is as you get older, like me, it's the well runs dry. Eventually, it doesn't have the same effect, and you have to keep doing it. And with drinking especially, Coke, you could just keep going and going and going and going, right? And then you're afraid to go to sleep because you're afraid you won't wake up, right? But then drinking, you have to keep drinking to feel normal. That was where I was at. I wasn't drinking anymore to party. I had to drink to keep from shaking.
Dang.
It was like leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage.
Dang.
That's where I was at. Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, it was the most brutal of all drugs that I've ever experienced was alcohol hangover. The cold sweats, the night terrors when you'd stop drinking for like a week to try to detox. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares, like just, and now that doesn't happen. I smoke my bowl, I drink my coffee, I watch my news with Brianna Ruffalo, and you know what I mean? And I'm feeling good. I feel like I'm 20 something again, physically. And I lost weight. Now, granted, I'm thin as a wafer over here. I'm like a giraffe, right? But drinking, I got bloated. I gained weight.
Okay.
And people are like,
the beer belly.
Yeah, you look great, Sketch. You look great. I'm like, I don't feel great. I'm hungover all the time. All the time. There was never a moment I wasn't hungover or going to get another drink. And I was working here at that time in 2019. It was brutal. So my advice, not advice, but my input to anybody who may be struggling with addiction or let's say you're not addicted to a substance, but you're addicted to sex, or you're addicted to ESPN,
or your phone,
or TikTok.
Yes.
All these things are great and fun, but they will weigh on you. So it's just good to just step away. And I just decided, look, I watched Liz Hernandez, I watched Big Boy. I am a big fan of Steve Jobs and everything he did as far as creating stuff. I mean, to me, he was like the modern day Thomas Edison. He changed the world and he innovated things. And I did a lot of intros and stuff, audio production for DJs back in the day. And I just decided one day I want to be like them. Not like famous. I just want to have the same drive. And how do they do it? And I watched Liz. I watched Big. Sober, finally. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to keep this sobriety going. Just to try it on. Just to see if it fits.
Yeah.
See how it feels.
Yeah.
Like these joggers. All right, this works good.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, 1 month turned into 2. My belly started going. I look like the Mexican Dale from King of the Hill. Okay. What's up, Hank? Like I had a beer belly, receding hairline.
Oh
it was a whole spiel. I looked a mess. I was more of a looking hot mess than I actually was a mess as far as just work and getting my obligations done. I felt I looked really worn down.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that anymore. So I decided, let's just try it. On New Year's Day, I got my last 6-pack of Stella at 6 in the morning from 7-Eleven, right? Drank every sip I took was like drinking like battery acid. It just like my body was like, dude, we're done. It's a wrap. Like no more. You're going to go sober, keep smoking your weed, switch over to coffee, eat your sugar to balance out. You got to give up one vice. But the sugar intake went way up.
Yeah.
And the weed intake went way up. But since then, I've just felt like I'm normal again. You know what I mean? Like as normal as I could possibly be.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm there. Have you ever had to deal with any addictions or any things like that?
Well, I grew up with a lot of drugs around me. Like I remember in 3rd grade, I knew my first drug dealer because this guy grew up with his family selling drugs. So he would bring weed to school and sell it in the playground and stuff. Yeah. And like
nickel bags.
Yeah. And dime bags
Nicks
and all
and
that.
dimes.
And the thing is that it turned me off so bad at such a young age. And plus my dad smoked and I hated my dad smoking.
Smoking weed?
He smoked cigarettes, but he also smoked weed without me knowing.
Really?
But then I kind of grew onto it.
Did you ever smoke weed? Did you ever
You've never
done
smoked weed.
Really?
I've never done any drugs.
I am so sorry to hear that.
But I have had edibles.
Okay, well then you've dabbled in the
and
THC
recently,
world. Okay.
like I recently had edibles for the first time, maybe 2 years ago.
And how did you like it?
I kind of freaked out.
Yeah, edibles are rough.
Yeah, because I was learning about microdosing because in the autism community, when you have somebody that doesn't sleep, they recommend trying indica.
Or like CBD as well. You know?
Yeah.
I gave that to my dog when she was dying of stage 4 cancer.
So I heard about it and I was like, I cannot have clarity knowing that I'm going to maybe let my daughter try this and I've never had it.
I see. So you were the guinea pig.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so before I even considered it, I microdosed. I learned about how to do that. I tried it and I was like, I lit a candle and I thought my apartment was on fire. And mind you, I didn't know what to experience.
Yeah, edibles though it's like you're throwing in, even if it's a microdose, if you don't, it's because of the time it takes to hit you.
Yeah.
And when you smoke weed or vape it, you just take a little pull. Like I used to give my mom weed because she had sciatica. Sciaticas. Is it plural or is it just sciatica? Sciatica. And I remember she didn't like weed. She'd get mad at me for smoking weed big time. My son's a pothead. Da, da, da. And I'm like, Mom, it's medicinal.
Yeah.
It'll help. And one day I used to work at Groove Radio in Santa Monica, right? And I did a lot of production. I was on air out there. Shout out to Swedish Eagle. And then I went home one day and by then my mom was living with me. Okay. I had already I was like 18, but I was living on my own. I had moved out my ex-girlfriend's house and my mom came to stay with me. We were living together and she was suffering from the sciatica thing and she was laying on the floor and she'd lay on the floor to try to help. And I came home and I went to go get my joint. She already knew I smoked weed at this point. She was cool with it because now I'm a grown man I'm grown up. I'm adult. I have my own roof,
Yeah, you can do it under your own.
She was like, when you have your own, you pay your own rent, then you could smoke your bowls, Christian. And I was like, all right. And then I come home and I had a pre-rolled joint, right? And I had it ready to go in the bathroom drawer, right? I go home and half of it smoked.
Oh my God, it was her.
And I'm all, no, because here's the thing. Well, it was, but here's the catch is I was like, Mom, did Elias, her boyfriend at the time, who smoked weed, and she was cool with it. She didn't like weed, but she was cool with it. She drank wine and Budweiser and shit. Very Mexican. But I go, Mom, did Elias smoke some of my weed? She goes, no, Christian, that was me. I'm like, really, Mom? I was like, well? And she's like, well, what, are you going to scold me now?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Am I in trouble?
I said, no, Mom, I want to ask you, well, what's the verdict? And she goes, I feel better. And I was like, Well, there you go. I go. She goes,
You
but
stubborn lady.
I go. She goes, I don't like the sinking feeling though. I feel like I'm sinking, and I'm like, Mom, you're not sinking. She was like, but I'm worried.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just the paranoia. That'll pass. It's part of the territory. It comes par for the course. You're going to get paranoid. You're going to laugh a lot. Your mouth is going to get dry.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get hungry.
That was the weird part too.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was so turned off by it. And I think what it was is that being around people that had to sell drugs was such a turnoff for me that I just didn't want anything to do with it.
Plus, it was a stigma back then.
It
you know what I
was.
mean? Weed was considered the gateway drug.
It was. Weed wasn't even bad. I'm talking about like crystal meth.
Oh,
and
you're talking
things
about the
like
hard
that.
narcotics.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I knew people that were, because again, the area that I grew up in, it was like
In Pomona.
Snoop Dogg freaking raps about picking up cocaine in Pomona.
Yeah.
So it's just part of the culture.
Yeah.
And so I really hated it because I saw so many people.
It was a negative thing about it. Yeah.
I saw a lot of people I grew up with get taken over by drugs.
Totally.
And I just never wanted that for myself. And I never wanted that. Like, I didn't feel like I needed it.
Yeah, and you don't. It's just, again, it's just a novelty.
Yeah.
But you do need it eventually when you get addicted to it.
Yeah.
And you see, like, well, I can keep going and going about the drug thing, but I did slightly get addicted to opioids for a second. Now, I don't like drugs.
Are those like pills?
Yeah, those are like Vicodin, Norcos.
Gotcha.
What else is Oxycontin?
But isn't it hard to get that stuff?
It is. It is hard nowadays. It's harder. But I remember not too long ago, my neighbor / aunt, and manager where I lived at in Toluca Lake, she had like a back issue as well.
Okay.
You know, she's in her later years of her life. And she was suffering. She had to get surgery done. It was kind of like my mom's sciatica, but it wasn't sciatica. It was something else. I can't remember exactly at this moment, but it was something that had to get her surgery was required, right? And they gave her a bunch of drugs, a lot of painkillers. And last year, last year? Yeah, we went to the KOST 103.5 Disneyland thing, and I got on the Avengers ride, the one that goes up and down. My back was in agony. 2 days later, I get home. I couldn't even bend over to tie my shoe. I was sitting down. And
so now you had sciatica.
Sort of. I felt, and I go, Mom, I'm like talking to my mom in my head. You know, I'm like, Mom, did I just inherit your sciatica? Holy shit, I'm only 40. At the time, I'm only 43 or 44.
Yeah, it can happen at any time.
Yeah. And so I asked Wendy, I'm like, do you have any painkillers I can use? She goes, Sketch, you can have all of them. I don't like them. She gave me all her painkillers.
Oh my God.
And right then the movie theater started opening back up, right?
Yes.
So I went to go see Ghostbusters Afterlife in the theater, and I bought an AMC pass. I took the fucking painkillers with me, and I would go to the theater and I'd pop them. I'd crack them in half and just pop them, right? It was kind of like being drunk, sort of.
Yeah.
And it felt good, and the pain was gone.
And
they worked.
It kind of gives you a little boost of energy, right?
Yes. Well, it's very mellow, but yeah, the energy, because the pain is gone, so now I feel energetic.
And I
can
only
do-
know because I've had them after my C-sections.
Yes, yeah. But you required, I didn't really need them, but eventually I got super constipated.
Oh, yeah.
It was the worst.
That'll rip you a new one.
Yo, for real? Social Queen Darlene.
You have to take stool softeners with them.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up after this. We're almost at 2 hours here. We're at 1:41.
Are we gonna break a record?
Well, let's see. Yeah, I mean, Big Boy went 2 hours. Let's see, Mary went 3.5, but I cut it down to 1.
Was that 3.5?
That was 3.5. Yeah, but I went on and on about my fetish for leggings and stuff like that. You know, so. It was.
Do you want to end it with stool softener?
I do. We'll circle back to something a little less shitty, if you will. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here till they fire me. Oh, John Peake just sent me the future endeavors email. Okay, no, here's what happened, and I'm just going to shorten this.
Yeah.
I was taking too many painkillers at the movie theater, having a great time. I'd go to the theater by myself. It was wonderful. And I saw a ton of movies. I saw Matrix, what's it called? Matrix Resurrection. Yeah. I saw Ghostbusters, all on these painkillers, right? Not drinking, no alcohol, didn't accompany it with alcohol, none of that. Just went home, smoked weed. But eventually, a week later, I noticed I haven't gone to the bathroom. And I'm like, uh-oh. I called my friend. I called one of my coworkers, Delgado, and I said, hey, Delgado, your grandmother, she takes painkillers, right? Well, did she ever get constipated? And she's like, oh, yeah. I was like, what do I do? I'm constipated right now. And she's like, I think you should drink some hot water and walk around. So I drank a cup of hot water, and I walked around. I took stool softener. Still didn't work.
It's too late.
I went to my neighbor, who's at the time physical therapist, Jim. I'm like, Jim, I am freaking. I was crying on the phone to him. I said, Jim, I'm freaking out. I haven't taken a dump in almost a week and a half. And he was like, well, he goes, you what, painkillers? I said, yeah. And he goes, oh yeah, that's what happens. He goes, you take Docalex, that'll work. He goes, Dad, eat a banana. He goes, but Sketch, he goes like, it's going to pass. Yeah. It's going to pass. It has to. I'm like, I don't know, man. This thing feels like a brick. It feels like a kilo of cocaine I'm muling over. You know what I mean? And I can't get it out. Even those people have easier times passing.
Totally.
Okay. So finally, I took like 2 or 3 Docalex, right?
Yeah.
I took some other stool softener, like a gummy.
Okay.
Right?
You never needed an enema?
I did. I went and got an enema from CVS, and guess what? When I was walking around CVS, I'm so glad you said that because I almost forgot. I'm walking around CVS and I'm clinching. And I'm like waddling through. People are looking at me like, what the fuck is up with this guy? I grab the enema. I go home. I get on all fours. You know, ass up, face down, ass up, like the 2 Live Crew song.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I went in.
This town needs an enema.
And I'm telling you, that didn't even work.
No.
Right?
Dang.
At first.
Okay.
But then.
Finally.
About 30 minutes later.
In all of its glory.
I mean, but it wasn't glorious. It was nuclear. Okay? It was like an atom bomb went off. And when I got in there, it still took me really having to push like I was giving birth. And I was like, I'm going to rip my ass.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care at this point. I don't care. It'll heal. It'll heal. My ass was even like, what are you doing? What are you doing? We can't do this. And finally, when it came out, it was...
God, you poor thing.
It was terrible.
That poor toilet.
Even the toilet got clogged. I had to wait and flush it down with hot water to break it down. It was brutal. Yeah. After that, I immediately stopped. Yeah. Never took another painkiller again. And they
should put that on the freaking bottle.
Forget about just the addiction.
Yeah.
It's the fucking constipation that ruins you.
When you have a baby, they give you the stool softener with the Norco at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And so that's kind of how I learned.
That works. Yeah, I guess that would be the move.
But
God damn, Darlene. I mean, I want to ask you before we wrap up, okay? Because I do have to start my regular production shift. Mm-hmm. As far as, let's go back to radio. Let's fast forward back to radio. Yeah. When it comes to you being in radio now and working with Ellen K, do you ever want to be on the radio yourself? Do you want to have your own show? Do you want to do your own shift? Do you think I think you probably could now. You've been carrying this podcast with me.
I do have my own podcast.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
let's
and
talk
I just
about that.
do it whenever I want.
Okay.
It's called Casa de Locos Show. Okay. And it's all about my family and other crazy families.
Other crazy Latino families?
No, any type. Uh-huh. And we just like to collect crazy ass stories that have happened, that you've experienced, that you've gone through, that you've overcome, or even some that maybe you didn't overcome, because we like others to feel, because people already think we're batshit crazy.
Like, what, Mexicans?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, everyone thinks my family's crazy.
Oh, your family in particular. Okay,
yeah. And so if we had cameras in the house, they, like, even our dogs have drama. You know what I mean? Like, there's always something happening that's out of our control. We can't help it. And so that kind of inspired the whole show. And I found that it was connecting my teenager son and my husband and I. So the three of us get together and try to do a show every now and then.
Oh, so it's a family podcast.
Yeah.
That's dope.
But it's very free range. It's like, we do have one sponsor that has supported us through the years.
Look at you.
So that's pretty cool. And I've been able to keep that up through, we endorse a family bike. It's called the Furla Family Bike. Mm-hmm. And it's like one of its original, it's an electric bike that is a cargo bike. So I can fit Bella into it. And I can take her for rides around the city and stuff.
That's so cute.
And it's awesome. Like, we got it during COVID. Yeah. And in a way, it was really expensive. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of, my husband was like, look, Bella is never going to have a car. She's not going to require like extra expenses like Little Bear with college and stuff. Let's splurge and get this for her. Yeah. So we did. And we got her like the nicest one you can get,
That's
which
dope.
I think topped up at almost $5,000.
That's like a real car.
Yeah. But no gas required. It's rechargeable, and it gives her so much life.
Could you imagine if it took real gas, like premium unleaded?
Oh my gosh, no. But we owed it to her to get her something that she can join with us on bike rides now. When we go camping, we take it. We can go on the bike trails. We have a trailer to haul it around now.
On the path.
Yeah,
right?
and so you'll see videos on my Instagram of that all the time.
Where's your podcast heard on? What's
anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Is it on iHeart?
It's on iHeart.
Look at you.
Yeah.
See, I'm not on iHeart.
Yeah,
I work at iHeart, but I'm not on iHeart app. Radio
it's on
app.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like we try to do it. This past year's been really hard to keep up with the extra, because that's like an extra component. But we do enjoy it, and we've had a couple of really serious episodes. Like we've dealt with a really tragic death in our family. Back in 2018, we lost Alex's dad suddenly, and so that really changed us and changed our life.
Can I ask how?
Yeah, he didn't know that he had a kidney infection, and he thought he pulled his back, but he went septic and died.
Just like that?
Yeah.
How long?
Like within 30 hours.
Holy shit.
It was bad. And he was young. He was 59. Damn. He was the life of our whole, like the leader of our pack.
What was his name?
His name was Alex too.
Oh, Alex.
So my husband is the second and my son is the third.
Interesting.
And so that really rocked us.
Yeah.
And we found ways to connect and keep his energy alive.
Right. You keep the memory alive, which makes him alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to connect with other people that are grieving and continue to grieve. We interviewed one of my friends who lost her husband when she was only 36 years old, leaving her with 4 kids behind, and how she's living a beautiful life, remarried, retired in Utah now, has even been able to dabble in radio a little bit. We met at radio school. Oh. And then I also interviewed one of Alex's cousins who lost her brother, her older brother, and her dad within a span of 3 years.
Damn, that's like back to back. You know what? That's kind of like what I went through. My uncle Jerry passed in 2014. Okay. My dog passed 2015. This dog was like my kid. Okay,
oh, yeah,
I know dogs are dogs.
Oh no, but losing a dog is so hard.
It was like losing my kid.
Yeah,
you know, and she was 10, stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
And then right after that the next
What's
year,
her name?
Lily. I have a tattoo of her right here.
Aww.
That's right. And I have my mom's tattoo up on my left.
What kind of dog
arm.
was she? Let me
Springer Spaniel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
They even put her bowl in there.
Aww.
I didn't know if I wanted that.
Did you really put the bowl?
Yeah, but you know what? That's fine because that was one of the last pictures she took.
That's
and she
funny.
actually posed, but it's the detail in the eyes that make it real. So she's always with me, and I put it on my left lower forearm because I'm left-handed.
Okay. Oh, cool.
So it's
it's in my ways, that's my way of having my own show.
Yes.
But I enjoy being a producer. My overall goal, I see myself as becoming an executive producer. Yeah. I look up to people like Jason Ryan. I look up to people like Michelle Cube down at KFI. Yeah. Like those are the people that I want to aspire to continue to be like.
Shout out to Michelle Cube. She's cool.
I love her.
Yeah.
And also, hopefully the money comes along with it because it's a struggle to make a living and to...
in LA. Yeah, for sure.
And
in
with
radio.
Inflation and in the industry where everything's becoming everybody can do a lot of jobs now.
Yeah.
And I think when you can be that person that they really need.
Yeah.
And it's not just technically, energetically, right? The energy that you bring, the vibe that you bring, that's unmatchable sometimes.
Exactly. And that's part of the job. It is. And they don't put that in the description.
Right. And you don't ever know who you're going to really vibe with. Right. So I feel like that's why God and my angels have always kind of taken care of me and kept me, and also just the journey, I've embraced it and it's led me to where I'm at now.
Real quick, I was going to say on the death thing, I almost left out my mom. So it was Jerry, Lily, and then shortly after Lily passed, 2017. So Lily passed 2015, and a year and some change later, my mom passed in 2017. So it was like 3 years back to back, and it's rough. And I think that was one of the main proponents.
Yeah, because your life changes with each loss.
And people, they deal with grief and loss differently. I dealt with it by doing drugs. That was how I dealt with it.
Okay. I remember getting super wasted the night that my father-in-law passed away because I had no other way to...
So you drink?
I drink, but I'm not a heavy drinker. I do enjoy a social drink and I can get drunk, but I don't like the feeling of being drunk.
Yeah.
And also, I've noticed that, especially after experiencing my father-in-law's passing, I was just drinking for days.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most I've ever drank.
Yeah.
And it was just because I was just so sad. I was so sad.
And the alcohol only makes it worse. It just amplifies it.
Oh my God,
It ignites
so
it.
much worse.
And it feels like it. People go, I'm going to drink until I don't feel feelings anymore. But it only increases them.
Yeah. And I learned that quickly. Like, I just can't live like this. Yeah. And even now, like, sometimes I feel like I want a good margarita or I want like a good michelada. Yeah. And then I'm like, never mind. I'm going to drink this Gatorade instead. Yeah, I just, you know what I mean?
I prefer soda now. Yeah. That's my thing. And I go to Whole Foods and I buy their caffeine-free Whole Foods brand. It's called 365 or 360. Yeah. And it's good. Yeah. It goes flat quick, but it's good. And I love it. I feel like this is like my sister Raina, she likes drinking Diet Coke. That's her fucking thing, right? Okay. So does Bill Handel. These guys drink like cases of Diet Coke, like it's going out of style, right? I drink the little 6-packs and I'm happy. I'm content. Yeah. I don't want to say I'm happy because I don't think anybody's truly, fully happy. It's the pursuit. Yes. But for me, I like just knowing that I'm at a place now in my life where I'm content. Yes. And I'm okay. There's things I'm not happy with. There's people I'm not happy with. There's falling outs. There's people I had to cut out of my life that I thought were my friends. But I think being sober really opened my eyes to, you can't have certain people in your life because they're toxic, even though they're your coworkers or people that you went to school with, whatever, what have you. Mm-hmm. You got to learn how to just, you got to learn how to not be available to people that are going to bring you down.
You have to learn the power of no.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Roddy Ricch said. Yep. He says no. And Big Boy would be like, how do you say no? And he goes, I just say no. I don't even give him a reason.
It took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah. But I still can't just say no, though. I have to give a reason. Yeah.
I've gotten so much better at it. And also just doing what feels good to you for yourself, for you. And one thing I've learned in therapy, because I've tried to stick with therapy through the years, which it's not easy to find and it's not accessible for everyone. No. But listening to different podcasts
is therapy.
It is therapeutic
Absolutely.
For me.
No.
Which is why like one of yours is one of the ones I listen to, because you hear of different people's journeys and where you connect.
And they're
with
all
other people.
the same sort of, not meaning like not the same journey, but the struggle is
they've done
and
to
how
get
to
to
get
where
into
they're
radio.
at.
And some haven't made it.
Yeah.
They put in all these hours, all this travel, and went to this city, that city, came back, and then the dream they had was shattered. The grass is not always greener. People think that people who work in radio, that it's all slip and slides and strippers. And,
like they're at this event and that event, and then they're probably miserable inside.
And a lot of them are barely making ends meet. Like me. Yeah. But I'm not on air. Yeah. And I don't have an agenda to be on air. I just like doing this podcast because I'm good at it. And it's something that is a release to me.
It is.
But it's also a dread of obligation that I face every weekend.
Hey, you got to teach yourself. It's okay to say no, even to you. Yeah. And take a break when you need to. But the main thing that I think is so helpful to know that my therapist has shared with me is when you're feeling that overwhelming feeling, find peace in whatever you can find peace in.
Yeah. Walk away.
And hold on to that for whatever it is. 1 second at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. Yeah. And you just hold on to that peace, because without that peaceful feeling, you're gonna lose your shit.
Oh, I've done it many times.
And it sucks. You don't want to live like that.
I lose my shit all the time on myself. Like when I make a mistake, I get so angry at myself.
Yes. And then also it's important to know too, like back to circling back and closing all of this up. If you're choosing a career in this industry, it's so important to know that you need to dabble in other things to make ends meet.
Yep.
You have to. Like, not only are you going to be monumental for this show or for whatever you do for this company, but also be resourceful. Think about what you can do on the side.
Yeah.
Think about, go crazy. Think about merch. And that's why you see all these entrepreneurs selling their own merch and creating products and things that you don't think people might want, but they probably do.
You look at Liz with the Wordiful. And her gratitude candles. And so I bought a sweater. Yeah, I bought it. I wasn't like, Liz, hook me up. Yeah. It's like, dude, I'm trying to support because you want that what is it called? The barcode scanned. Yes. You know what I mean? You want that sale to go into the sales index.
Yes.
And it propels other people to buy it. I know I could probably have gotten it for free, but I don't want to do that. I buy stuff from Big Boy's merch. Yeah. Because it's supporting. It's all about support. That's the whole point.
It is.
You know, so I hear you on that, and I do appreciate you coming on the show, even though you could have said no.
Of course. I've been wanting to. It's just, this is a crazy, hectic time for our station.
It is. It's the
KOST
holidays.
103.5. This is like the Super Bowl of our whole year, but it's a fun time, and we're hoping we can bring some joy for whatever that is. Sometimes this time of year is really hard for people and for families.
Yeah.
And I know for even a piece of my family, we lost an aunt to COVID in 2020, and Christmas was this was her time to shine.
Yeah.
And so we miss her so much that her daughter still can't listen to Christmas music because it just brings back sad memories for her. But you know, we honor her, we love her, we're always going to miss her. And again, this is just life. We hope that we can do this life with you guys, and you're here to join us along the way.
Well said, Darlene.
But thank you for having me, Sketch.
There's so much more we can talk about.
Yeah, I know.
just have
we
to
can
wrap
keep
it up.
going.
Yeah,
I knew this would go 2 hours.
Yeah.
I knew it.
It's okay though, because I was fascinated by your stories and your life that you've lived, and you're still living your journey. And there's so much more to look forward to, and there's so much more we will talk about on the next episode when you come back. Will you come back on the show? Of course. All right, great.
Yes.
I appreciate you so much.
Happy
Social
holidays
Queen
to you.
Darlene. Are we leaving anything else out? I just want to make sure I'm not leaving anything.
I mean, if you want to stalk me, just look it up on Instagram.
Yeah.
I share my life on there.
Yes, at Social Queen Darlene. She is the morning show producer for Ellen K's morning show on KOST 103.5 FM Los Angeles. And is Ellen K syndicated in any other markets?
Yes.
What other
the
markets?
Ellen K Weekend Show. We're like in 70 other markets. So Saturday mornings, you'll hear us all over the place.
Does she have a podcast as well?
Yes, the Ellen K After Show. Which are like afterthoughts of after the show. Sometimes you'll hear her say some bad words on there, things you wouldn't imagine her to say.
Let me ask you this: I don't want to seem like I'm downplaying the fact that I had you on the show, but I am curious because Tony Sanchez and I talked about this because I said I'm going to have Darlene on the show. I met Ellen K that day after I saw you, and I said, "Hey, I'm the guy who made the Friday Morning Lights intro."
Yes,
and she was like so sweet, and she had said she had just was crying because she was interviewing somebody, not sad, like weeping. It was just more of like she was touched. She was moved by something, and she just, ran some tears down the face.
We cry a lot on that show.
Hey, I cry all the time. I cry. I'm going to cry when I go home. But she came out of the studio, and I go, "Can I take a picture with you?" And she goes, "Yes, I was just crying." I go, "Oh." And I gave her a hug, and I felt like she needed it because she kind of leaned in, and she doesn't know me at all. And she took a bunch of pictures.
She's so sweet.
Yeah, she was so sweet. So I wanted to ask you, as her producer, do you think I might be able to get an interview with her?
Ooh, she is
for my podcast.
So she is such a busy lady, but I'm not going to say no because she is all about helping people and, sharing her story. Sharing her such a great story.
I know. I want to hear it. And look, it doesn't have to be a 2-hour podcast.
Let's make it one of our New Year's goals, intentions.
Let's try that. And it doesn't have to be like a marathon podcast because you have time to kill.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But with Ellen, she's obviously a very busy person. 30 minutes.
Yeah.
30
totally.
minutes and maybe an hour if it goes longer.
Yeah.
We'll just say 30 minutes, wink, wink,
Well, let's see what I can do.
Yeah, maybe. I don't want to make you have to answer for her, but, just put it in her ear, take her temperature on it.
Totally.
Hopefully it'll work out. But again, Darlene Rodrigo, Social Queen, Darlene.
Thanks,
I appreciate you, Darlene.
Appreciate you too.
Talk to you again.
Oh, good for you. And how was it?
The Sketch-O-Matic Show.
Hey, too much information and shit, man.
Shut your mouth, essay.
Okay, bye.